nearby. Oh, Councillor Hazelton's drifting in, drifting out. Councillor Cooper, oh, I saw him for a moment. All right. Have you hit the button? We're now starting. All right. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay to order at 9 o'clock on Monday, January 11th, 2021. I don't know how many times you have messed up 2021 versus 2020. I will admit to at least a couple times so far this year. I want to start this meeting to acknowledge that we are on the lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. They continue to care for this land. They continue to shape the Township of Georgian Bay, and we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today in guiding our decisions and our actions. Megwitch. Councillors, anyone have any pecuniary or code of conduct conflicts of interest that they wish to declare at this time? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we will carry forward. The first motion in front of us, moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council adopts the consent agenda of January 11th, 2021 as circulated. I'm seeing no comments. Right. And that Council endorses the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole December 17th, 2020 meeting. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see everybody's in favor. So that is carried. Thank you. Okay. So now I can skip a number of these and move on to, be it resolved the Council adopts, moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Council adopts the regular agenda of January 11th, 2021 as circulated. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Katsir. I just wanted to raise something that I think needs to go on to new business. Specifically, well, actually there's a number of things, but I wanted to have a discussion about having CAL meetings or not having CAL meetings. There are a number of things that I would have liked to have discussed at CAL, which we haven't dealt with. So I would like to have that discussion today and then start dealing with some of these time-sensitive issues. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but I've got a list of so far of 6 items that at least half of them are time-sensitive. One of them is I know we're discussing it today, but the council composition issue is something that's time-sensitive. Has to be completed by, I think it's around the end of March. What about a public meeting? 50% of our taxes go over to the District of Muskoka. The public need to weigh in on this. So that's one issue. The other thing is that sooner or later, we've got to get some decisions made on things like solid waste. So one of the things I'm suggesting is that we need to have a council discussion around the solid waste issue so that we can give direction to that committee, because I think we're sort of floundering a little bit there, if it may not be the right word, but we're not moving forward very quickly and we still need to deal with some issues. We need council feedback on things like our new email addresses where we have hardware issues. So I'd like to have a discussion around that. And I'd like to have a discussion about having COW meetings. So a COW discussion at COW. So there you go. There's a few of the things. I haven't named everything, but that's my list. So I'd like to see at least a discussion today about how we're going to deal with some of these things.
And we'll call that item 9D then.
Thank you.
Any other additions, subtractions, changes? Councillor Douglas.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, under new business item C, I'd like to have that removed and put that off till February.
Okay, so you're proposing the removal or postponement, shall we say, of the Sunday hunting item.
Yes.
All right, Councillor Douglas. If I could just request that that item remains on, that way we can have direction to staff and a wholesome report could come forward in February.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right.
but
Well,
sorry, if I can just say, I don't want to have a discussion about it today because we're missing information, and my understanding is the Federation of Anglers and Hunters would like to do a delegation next month.
Mhm.
So however you want to do it is fine.
why don't we leave it on, though I strongly suspect it'll be a brief discussion.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm seeing no more hands raised, so I'm going to say, be it resolved, the council adopts the regular agenda of January 11th, 2020 as amended to include item 9D in regard to numerous topics under cow meetings. All those in favor? Well, Councillor Hazelton.
I think Councillor Cooper was looking for the email topic to be drawn out separately and then have the cow discussions. So there's really two agenda items there. I think we need today in council to discuss the email topic. And then we also need to have these other committee of the whole discussions. Thank you.
All right, so what you're suggesting is as amended to include item 9D, cow meetings, and item 9E, email addresses.
Thank you.
Council. All those in favor with these amendments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is carried. All right. Now let's start with the communications. Early Monday morning. And let's change it around a little bit here because we've been going alphabetical and reverse alphabetical. So now I'll start in the middle. And therefore, I'm going to suggest Council Hazelton, you're going to lead us off, just to catch you off guards a little.
Lovely. Well, given it was supposed to be a festive season, a COVID quiet festive season. So there wasn't a lot of activity from my perspective, other than I seem to have ongoing recurring conversations with constituents. Those seem to never stop right through the season. But as far as any kind of landmark milestones, normal business and preparation for the new year.
All right, thank you. Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
much like Councillor Hazelton, it was a fairly quiet festive season. Conversation correspondence with my residents in regards to various items, some of which are on the agenda today. But other than that, moving forward, I suspect we're in for a little bit of a quiet beginning of the year until we get through this lockdown on COVID. But yeah, it was quite quiet for me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Cooper.
I have, yeah, I'm the same way. Very little to add in my regard. Most everything was off for the holidays, so I have nothing new to report. There's a lot of fair bit of correspondence, but all of it to do, it seems to me right now, with either hunting and a little bit to do with planning. But that's been about it. Been pretty quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wienko, which of course means Councillor Bochuk will be the last one.
Thank you, Mayor. Really not much to report. Usual meetings, both district and otherwise, although a fascinating meeting on the 18th of December regarding municipal modernization at the district. And a lot of contact with our constituents as per usual. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wienko.
Okay, yeah, it was a bit of a quiet time. I did have an SSCA meeting on the 16th of December, and we approved the budget and a few other things there. I spent quite a bit of time, of course, preparing the, the water quality report that is in the consent agenda. One thing I do want to highlight is that harking back to the presentation by Dr. Chow Fraser about water quality values in and around Oak Bay. And I noticed in my results from Gloucester Pool down by the locks, this is a water that would flow into the area around Oak Bay. We had very high values this year, and I think there was like 20 milligrams per liter, and I think it was 20 and 21. So I think that was some of the values that she was quoting too. So I think that maybe explains some of the high values around the Oak Bay area. I was working with some of the inland communities on the composition review, and I'll get into more details about that when we get there. Obviously, I got a number of issues on hunting. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that issue. As a counselor, I did stay home for the holidays. So if anybody's watching, I was home for the holidays. I didn't go anywhere. I did go south for a while, but I only got far as Coldwater, and that's far as south as I went. So there you go. And that's it.
Well, thank you. Councillor Bochek.
You're muted, sir.
Again, a very quiet COVID festive season. Didn't get out to see any constituents, but had a lot of phone calls for me to investigate things for constituents, and I'm in the midst of doing that. The one thing that I did complete was a face-to-face meeting with the people from Parks Canada about the dam and the bridge in Port Severn, and about the schedule when they're proposed to be finished and get that bridge back open again. So things are looking positive there. A lot of the local businesses, gas stations, restaurants, campgrounds, marinas have contacted me about our position to do with COVID. And basically the only thing I can tell them is that the provincial orders supersede anything and everything that we do here at the township, and basically to follow the provincial guidelines. Fishing, hunting, snowshoeing, that's about it for my month.
All right, thanks very much. Last year, December 15th, I had a land acknowledgement meeting with the district, which I thought was very interesting. The district has now drafted I'll call it quite a lengthy, more than a page long land acknowledgement statement, with the intention that whenever it is utilized, people will be selecting from various paragraphs each time, as opposed to reading the whole thing. I also had that day both Land Trust and Biosphere board meetings. The 16th, a health unit meeting, which of course is quite a bit more about COVID than anything else these days, but regular business does carry on. And I had a cow meeting with on the 17th, virtual Christmas meeting on the 18th with the staff, which was, I think, unfortunately virtual, but enjoyed by many of the staff members who participated. The 21st was a district meeting, and the 22nd a district finance meeting. And then a couple of weeks of Christmas, New Year's, seasonal holidays, though, as others have commented, it gave actually some of our constituents an opportunity for more communication versus less, which was mostly interesting. Quite a bit around the Municipal Modernization Committee and input from various individuals on what they saw going forward on that. And those discussions will continue. On the 7th, I was actually at the township office to sign a few documents and things like that, but also filming a little video clip for the Georgian Bay General Hospital, because they got a very generous donation from Mr. Marco Mancini in the tune of $5 million over the next 3 years. So I think that's superb news for the hospital to get that additional support. I also was told that there were a number of sizable contributions made from various residents in our area, which is great to hear. And also we raised a Crime Stopper flag, as is normal for January. And now we're starting meeting weeks. So with that, I'm going to turn over to our CEO, Ms. Gunby, to get her report of the last month's worth of activity. Ms. Gunby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple things. Probably just repeating myself from the last couple months. We're waiting for delegation confirmation for Roma because that is in 2 weeks. And I do really hope we hear soon about the delegations we've asked for with about 4 or 5 ministers. I'm still doing my weekly calls with the health unit, district CAOs, and the ministries. Zoom calls and updates regarding COVID legislation and new rules is taking up still a lot of my time. Speaking of which, there will be an announcement tomorrow by the Premier, likely with more restrictions, although I'm really not sure exactly what else can be imposed. The word curfew has been thrown around, but if we can't go anywhere or do anything, I'm really not sure what a curfew is going to accomplish. That's just my opinion. The 10 a.m. announcement on Friday, I think it was, he stated that Ontario was currently in a worse position than we have ever been throughout this entire pandemic. So stay tuned for tomorrow. And we are close to executing the agreement with district about using their legal services. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll move into staff reports. And our first staff report, Mr. Sokat, that is with regards to you wanting to keep an eye on the weather.
Thank you, Your Worship. I assume you can hear me okay.
I can.
Thank you. The township has an obligation to monitor the weather according to our policy and the provincial requirements 3 to 4 times a day. And when it comes to monitoring, it's not just looking at the website and seeing what the weather is. We have to document how things are going to look. So we print out a copy of the weather report, we sign it, we date it and write the time down. And at the end of the year, we have a stack of these that are probably 1 foot to 1.5 foot thick that we have to keep for 15 years for liability defense reasons. In addition, the service we're using right now is just the weather network service that everybody has access to. It's okay. One of the things that we don't have on it is the dew point, and the dew point is very, very important for us because it gives us an indication if there's going to be the potential for black ice. So if the dew point is higher than the asphalt temperature, then you have a very good potential for black ice, and we need to go out and do some work before the temperature gets there, before the time when this is supposed to happen, to put down some sand or salt. And we don't really have that ability right now based on what we have, based on the weather network. We used to have access to something called RWIS, which was a road weather information system that is provided by the Ministry of Transportation. There was a station that was set up around Crooked Bay, and for some reason they dismantled it in 2014 or 2015, just before I started. So we lost access to that, and that was a very good program. We have looked at other services, but we hadn't had a lot of success finding one that would provide us the information that we really should have. Now, the district has been in the same situation, and they just did quite an investigation into different services, and they found this one is called the Weather Underground, and it's provided by IBM. And what they do is 4 times a day, they send you an email with the weather forecast for both the day as well as, I believe, 14 days out. And it's a nice graphical presentation that they give you. I believe there was a copy attached to the report. There are 3 stations in our township that we can have access to, one in Honey Harbor, one in Port Severn, and one in MacTier. The downside of it is it's very expensive. It seems quite expensive, although it's in the same range as the other services we saw. It's almost $6,000 a year. Now, because we're using it for township as well as district roads, I've inquired with them to see if they were willing to pay half of it, since Half of what we do is their roads. I haven't heard a response back, but the initial conversations I had, it sounded like they would be interested in splitting the costs. So we're looking for council authority to subscribe to this system. It'll either cost us $3,000 or $6,000 a year, which I know sounds like a lot of money. But one lawsuit that we have difficulty defending because we don't have the proper printouts or the proper weather reports signed, it'll pay off quickly. I know in other jurisdictions and lawsuits with the RWIS system, we were able to defend ourselves and have a couple of cases thrown out because we could clearly demonstrate that we had been following our policies and monitoring the weather and reacting appropriately.
Trouble with trying to handle two screens here is my mouse gets lost on me. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I saw Councillor Douglas's hand,
Thank you.
followed by Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Brad, I'm just wondering if you can tell me, are we paying for a service right now, or are we just relying on, what are we relying on?
Through the mayor, we're just using the weather network right now, which is not horrible, but it's difficult for us to document that we've checked the weather and to be able to provide that for a lawyer. It also doesn't show the dew point, which is my biggest concern with it.
So just supplementary to that, if I may, one, I'd like to know, have we had problems in the past with the law, like recently with lawsuits to do with the roads? And you've reached out to district, but have not heard back. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that's correct. I haven't heard back from them. They are using it in other parts of the township. Bracebridge is also using this service. We tried to piggyback onto their account, but unfortunately, there's not much of a cost savings. For $6,000 a year, you get 3 sites. For $12,000 a year, you get 7 sites. The district is already using 3. So if we were to piggyback with them, it would still be $6,000 and we'd have our 3 sites. So there wasn't a savings there.
And as far as lawsuits, have we had to deal with that? Or?
We've had one lawsuit that I can recall in the past couple of years, but we didn't need to provide the weather data. We were able to use our GPS data from our trucks to demonstrate that they were out. So the question wasn't whether we had responded in time to an event. The question was, had our trucks been out in the last 6 hours or 12 hours to clear the snow? And we were able to clearly demonstrate that.
Okay, and if I may, just one further question, then what is the associated cost with the system that we're using now on an annual basis? Is there an estimate to that, or is there? I mean, at this point, I guess what my constituents want to know is this a cost savings, or aside from the benefits you've brought it forward, I mean, do we have a cost savings here, or is this something that we should maybe look at later because of the situation we're in right now?
I think it's difficult for me to say that we're going to save money right off the bat, but one lawsuit, and we will. In my previous employ, by using the RWIS system, we were able to clear up 2 pretty significant lawsuits because we were using this system. There was also a large lawsuit in, I believe it was Brampton or somewhere around Toronto, where it was a black ice situation and they weren't able to demonstrate that they had reacted appropriately to the weather conditions. And as such, they became liable for it. It's one of the famous joint and severable liability cases, actually.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Bochuk.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Brad. I just had a couple of thoughts and suggestions with respect to the arrangements with the district. I think you said something to the effect that an individual municipality signing up for this, it would cost, I think, $6,000. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that's correct.
But it would be $12,000 to have 7 sites.
Through the mayor, that's correct as well.
it's a no-brainer. The district should be paying $12,000 and providing it for all the municipalities. The amount of money that we send over there, it's absurd that we'd have to pay any of this. I would add to that there are certain things, for example, that have been done on the mapping side of things in our Geo Hub, and everything stops at Township of Georgian Bay, including a tool called LiDAR. So I think I think we need to push really hard with the district and say, sign up for everybody. So that'd be my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wienko.
Thank you. So basically you're saying that there are stations in Mactier, Honey Harbor, and Port Severn, and in between there's no station, which is of concern to me because usually any day of the week you'll have people in Mactier or you'll have people in Honey Harbor or Port Severn that can put their head out the door to see what the weather is. But in between, where we have the majority of our back roads is between Port Severn and Mactier. And I can tell you right now that the amount of snow and the weather conditions in the middle between Mactier and Port Severn is quite different. We have half the amount of snow as Mactier, and I'm sure Port Severn has even less. So it would be nice if we could get a station in between, like maybe the Crooked Bay weather station, if we can get one in there, because I think that's important to have that whole area, which is a majority of the township, on the system, and not just to have the local towns where we have people already stationed most of the week.
Through the mayor, I don't disagree with you, and I was probably a little bit misleading when I mentioned Honey Harbor, Port Severn, and Mactier. There is a site on a small lake that somebody's put up on their cottage, but it is a full weather underground system. It's somewhere in the middle of the township, and I can't remember the lake. It was a lake I haven't heard of from before. And actually the weather report that was included with the report is from that site. But I agree that the weather really varies, and it usually around Crooked Bay is where there's a big switch.
Thank you. Councillor Wojcik.
Thank you. A few comments here. One, our district roads have a different set of parameters as far as keeping them clear. We're accountable to the district on that. Our municipal side roads continue to have 2 inches of ice and snow on them at all times, and you guys do a good job sanding them. But there is a permanent layer of ice and snow year round, usually. So I don't really see the need for this for our municipal roads. District roads, perhaps, yes. So let the district pay the bill. We have GPS tracking in our snowplow vehicles that will confirm the day and time that we plowed. We have a road supervisor that we pay to administer and control that. We also have, I believe, because I've seen the application go out for it, a road, I don't know what you call them, a road ranger that goes out at night and takes a looks at the roads and reports back in. I really think we're covered on this. I think it's a huge waste of money. I can't believe that the district would actually even have the chutzpah to even think about charging us for this. So I'll be very frank. I don't support this. I think it's a waste of money. I got the Weather Network. I got Environment Canada. I got a front window. I know if it snows. So I'm not going to support this. Just doubling up, tripling up on something that really the district, if they want it, they'll pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Hazelton.
Yeah, I'm sort of in league with Councillors Cooper and Bocek on this. And and Brad, I've seen the data that's been provided by the underground. It's quite detailed, and I can understand why it would be very, very useful to you guys. Just as a point, dew point is listed under AccuWeather. There's another site you might want to look at. I initially, when I saw this, was aghast at the cost, and checked out the weather sites that I look at. Since I'm a skier, I like to know what the weather's going to do, but certainly not in the detail that you require for looking at roads. So until I saw what you had provided us as coming through from the Weather Underground, I wasn't sure what it was all about. But I like this. I prefer to think that since a lot of what you do is for the district as well, I think I agree. We should be going to the district and saying, hey guys, this is a good idea for the district to be using on the whole, and let's incorporate it as part of the district's mandate and do it that way.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. Brad, I'm a little confused, but in fairness, I don't spend a lot of time on weather sites here, but I am playing around on the Weather Underground site here as we speak, and I see that there are at least a couple of sites in the township. They do provide the dew point. I'm wondering, is a subscribed version going to give you access to several more sites, or like, why is it that we have access to this and it's free and it's giving us the dew points? What am I missing?
Through the mayor, I find you say that you can see the dew points. When I looked at it, I didn't see the dew points.
So
that was
I'm on the page right now. If I look at it on an
Okay.
hourly basis, I'm seeing the dew points for every individual time window throughout the day. I'm seeing it for Honey Harbor. There's another weather site up in North Go Home Bay, and I don't
That's the
know
site.
where else you need it to be, but I'm just wondering how many physical weather locations in the township do you need, and if it's not showing those when you do a search in Weather Underground, if you pay for it, are you going to get access to more sites? I'm confused. I don't see. Anyways, I'll leave it with you.
All right. Before I start the second round, because I see Councillor Cooper has had his hand up a number of times. I also find myself questioning this a bit, Mr. Sokash, I'm afraid, in part because if the district is getting this service, then we're already paying for it through our district taxes. And if we're paying for it through our district taxes, why can't we get access to one or two of the, why don't they have one or two of their sites located in our township and we can get that information from them? That would be my basic question. I mean, if the district has to, instead of paying $12,000, pay $24,000 for their service or whatever the heck it would be, 10% of that, which is what we pay, is a lot less than $6,000 paying on our own. So anyway, I'll leave that with you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. And just, I want to understand the sort of dollars and cents here, because I'm still not getting it in terms of, Brad, what's being suggested here, because as I understood it from your presentation, it's for an individual municipality, it's $6,000 to have this service. And then but you also said that, I believe that you said Bracebridge goes out and hires this service, as does the district. So the district is paying, as I understand it, $6,000. Is that correct? And Bracebridge is paying $6,000, which is $12,000. And did you not say that for $12,000 they could have 7 locations? So what the math, if they consolidated those numbers, they'd be providing services to every municipality, would they not? Or is there something more complex to this?
Through the mayor, it's actually more in support of, I think, the comments that we've heard from all of council, whereas the district subscription includes the Bracebridge site. So the district is paying for Bracebridges essentially, as far as I'm aware. I'm not aware of Bracebridge. I'm not
Well,
aware
the
of
district-
Bracebridge paying for theirs.
You see, the district's paying for Bracebridge. Why isn't the district paying for us?
Through the mayor, I've tried that argument and not had a lot of success.
Well, then maybe we should bring it up at district councilors. Councilor Wienko. Councilor Wienko?
Well, while you were talking, hello? Yeah, while you were talking, I downloaded the app for weather underground. And I can tell you right now, the dew point is -4 degrees. And the humidity is 81 to 81, and visibility is 12 kilometers. So that's a free app on my cell phone. And it does indicate that it's actually localized my GPS in my house. So, you know, if you want the dew point, it's -4 degrees right now on 6 Mile Lake. So I think it's a free app that I'm just downloaded. It took me all of 2 minutes.
Through the mayor, okay. I think it's pretty clear what council's direction is, and I will let the district know and try to encourage them again to get us a subscription, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Councilor Douglas.
Thank you. Maybe I can suggest that on top of Brad approaching them, seeming he's not getting too far with them, that our councilors maybe bring this up with district. Because it sounds to me if they're paying for Bracebridge, why are they not paying for all of us? We're all paying into that upper tier. So I think this is something I would like to see our councilors champion for us as a township at the district level.
All right. Now, for the formalities, should I read the motion and have us defeat it? Ms. Way, is that your preference?
Or you could just receive the report and approve that. Just the first paragraph.
Okay. Then moved by Councilor Douglas, second by Councilor Hazelton. Be it resolved, the council receives a subscription weather forecasting service report dated January 11th, 2021.
Mayor Kutsier, I have one quick question, please.
Yes, sir.
Brad, I think what we need to get to the district is this. If they pay $12,000, they can provide this service to all the municipalities. Get on with it. I think it's really simple. Thank you.
All right. Do I need to read the motion one more time? All those in favor? And it's in favor of receiving the report. It's not in favor of the subscription, just to clarify.
I'm
Okay.
clear with that.
All right. So we're just the
Mr. Mayor,
motion
if
for
I
the first
may.
paragraph only. Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Bochek.
Yeah, my hand was up for a question of clarity. The original resolution, did it not ask for a decision from council whether we are going to approve this funding or not approve it? And I don't think we're sending the right message to district if we don't send a resolution saying, no, no, absolutely not.
But if I understand it correctly, this was an application by Mr. Sokash, our township staff, for the subscription. We're not going to approve it, as Mr. Sokash has already understood. This was not district asking us for money.
Correct.
All right, Councilors Wienko and Douglas. Wienko first.
Yeah, I just want to get some clarification. I'm on the Engineering and Public Works Committee where this issue would come up. Do you want me to approach Fred Yan on this issue, or is staff going to do that, or how? Like, we should have this on the agenda for our upcoming Engineering and Public Works Committee. So let us know who's going to initiate that request. Do you want me to do it, or do you want staff to do it? Maybe give me some direction on that.
Through the
Mr.
mayor,
Sokash.
if I may offer, Councilor Wienko, I've spoken to probably the staff as high up as I can reasonably go. I think it would be beneficial if you were to put it onto the agenda, Councilor Wienko or Councilor Cooper.
Okay. Councilor Douglas.
I think that's what I was asking for, is that I thought that our councilors need to bring this up at the district level. I think Brad has gone as far as he can, and I would like some direction put in there if we need it for our councillors to approach the district at that level on behalf of us.
You want a resolution to that effect? All right. I don't know if that is necessary, but we can, I'm sure Ms. Wade would be happy to craft one saying, Mr. Wienko, please talk.
I think
Because
if
he's
you
already volunteered.
do a resolution, if it's a resolution, then it should go right to the district, which would be the CAO up there, and it would work its way down to the commissioner and so on. So a request from our township to have this discussed at the district would be in the resolution, and that would be automatically go to Fred Yon, and it would get on the agenda that way. What I'll also do is send a copy of Brad's report up to him with an email to the chair of the committee and so on. But the resolution would really help, and because that would come in at the high level and work its way down.
Yep, thank you.
Ms. Wade.
So that the report be received and that Councillor Wienko be directed to request the District of Muskoka to obtain the subscription for the weather forecasting service for all area municipalities. Is that what you're looking for?
No,
I think
I'll make the request separately. I think the township requests that this be done. And I'll make another email I'll send up to Fred directly and the chair, Phil Harding and so on, asking it to be done. But no, the resolution should say the township requests this to be discussed at the district.
So the Township of Georgian Bay requests the district to obtain the subscription for the weather forecasting service for all area municipalities.
Okay, so we'll just add that on to the existing resolution as a second paragraph.
Correct.
So now it's moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton, assuming that they are accepting the modification. Be it resolved, the council receives the subscription weather forecasting service report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council directs staff to, how did you put it, apply to the district?
Request the district to obtain.
Request the district to obtain the weather forecasting service for the entire district, including the township of Georgian Bay.
That's paraphrased, but yes.
Okay. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried as modified.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And I believe the next item on our agenda, once I get back to the agenda, is the sustainability report, item 8B, results from the RFP 2020-13.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Ms.
Good.
Myers.
Happy New Year. Thank you, Your Worship. Happy New Year to everyone. This is the results of an RFP that we brought forward to Council in December for your approval to move forward. It is to install 2 level 3 50 kilowatt chargers right on the municipal property at 99 Lone Pine Road. We would like to award it to Green Lots. There were 2 submissions for this proposal, but Green Lots is the best fit for our community. And I present this report to you to seek your approval.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion, I'll read the motion before we discuss it, and that moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the council receives the results from RFP 2020-13 report dated January 11th, 2021. And the council directs staff to enter into a lease agreement with Green Lots for a 10-year period to install 2 level 3 50 kWh chargers. And that council directs staff to ensure that 2 parking spaces used for these installations are further replaced by Green Lots at no cost to the township to the west of the municipal building in front of the administrative office. Council. Councillor Bocek, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Jennifer, a quick question to do with the servicing of these units after they're installed, and also, are they going to be metered separately from the township hydro?
Through your worship, Councillor Bocek, they will be metered separately from the municipal services, and all maintenance is done by green lots except for snow removal, which we will take care of as we would in the parking lot anyways.
Okay, and subsequent to that, obviously these mechanical machines that charge your cars have a lifespan, and they most likely have a warranty period 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road. When these machines run out of warranty, are then we liable, or is it our responsibility to pay for the repairs to these units?
Through your worship, Councillor Bocek, this is a 10-year lease and there will be no financial implications to us for the duration of the 10-year period.
Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
I'm pretty sure the answer has been, I have the answer to my question, but you said it was metered, and that was my question about electrical costs, electricity costs. But the Green Lots company is paying for the metered amount, correct? Just, I want to be sure there's no cost anywhere.
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Cooper. Yes, there is no cost to municipality at any time for hydro maintenance or associated costs to these chargers located at 99 Lone Pine for the duration of the 10-year lease.
Councillor Wienko, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, just Jennifer, I'm a firm believer that nothing's free. What is the cost of the use of these meters? I'm concerned that if we're getting everything free and everything looks good, that our constituents might be charged more at this particular devices than it would be at another device. Do we know what it's going to cost per charge and compare it to other places, just to make sure that our residents or whoever's using it's not getting ripped off?
Through your worship, Councillor Wanko, there is an app that I would encourage all council to get on their phones or wherever you get your apps, and it's called PlugShare. And these devices will be registered on PlugShare. PlugShare is a network that is used by electric vehicle drivers to find chargers around their area. It would naturally be competitively priced to the neighboring chargers around us, and the rates do fluctuate a little bit, but it would be remiss of Green Lots to overcharge our residents or anybody using our chargers, because they're trying to recover their costs of the actual installation of the chargers. So if nobody uses it, then they're not making any money. So they need to maintain competitive status. If you get on a PlugShare app, you'll be able to eventually see these very chargers and those that have checked in for usage and get an idea of how many what the price is per kilowatts. Oftentimes there's sales on PlugShare where you can buy 9 chargers, get the 10th free. And those programs will be on PlugShare for anybody to access. So I hope that answers your question. It's difficult to tell the exact rate, but it's like fuel. It would be competitive to the market around us.
Okay, just to follow up, then how many plugs are there between, say, Barrie and Perry Sound? Obviously, there's one at Petro-Canada. But we're kind of a no man's land here where there may not be a lot of choices. So is there other plugs between, say, Barrie and Perry Sound?
Through your worship, there are limited level 3 chargers between Barrie and Perry Sound. That's why this particular exit is advantageous to Green Lots. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say. In order for people to travel up and down the Highway 400, this is a great location, and we would encourage electric vehicle chargers to get off at exit 156, charge their vehicles here, and spend their money in our businesses around our commercial corridor concentration. Anecdotally, this came to us because originally these chargers were to be installed in Wabashine, and Wabashine didn't have the appropriate hydro to support these chargers. And so a question was raised, do we want them at exit 156? And we immediately jumped on the opportunity because we would love for the vehicles to stop here and their owners spend money in our businesses.
All right, thank you. Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Douglas.
I think partly the question is partly answered, but I'll go with the second part of my question, which was signage. I think during our previous discussion on this, Jennifer, there was indication that there would be adequate signage for people to know that the charges existed, which I think would be rather important if they're going to get off the highway at all. And two, was there any conversation with it? It's now an Esso station, I think, across from our municipal office, and with Petrocan. Are there any plans at either of those two locations to install? I presume we already had this discussion, but were they thinking of installing level 3s or not at all?
Through your worship, I did meet with both owners of Petro-Canada and the Esso across the street. The Esso across the street is unable to jump into this opportunity because they have limited parking spaces. And Petro-Canada has one level 3. We did have a series of conversations with Gary about perhaps putting them at the back end of the building so that they would have highway exposure. But there's a right by the transformer is where Tim Hortons stores a good portion of their supply and stock. So it would be very difficult to move that business over without causing more financial and business distress. So we've stepped back. There is an opportunity coming forward for a different provider in the coming years, which we'll be bringing forward to council for you, that will further enhance the concept that if you can make it to exit 156, you can charge and fill here, as well as get good quality product.
All right.
Sorry, so what about signage then? I know that you said that there's the app for it, and most people would be plugged into that. Is signage then even necessary?
Through your worship, it is necessary because it's always good to celebrate electric vehicle charging stations here in our municipality, especially on the shores of the Georgian Bay Biosphere. We will participate in further signage that we have at Petro-Canada. Those green EV banners we purchased with Gary in partnership, and we'll put up a couple here if we need to, although the signage that comes with IV chargers is really quite attractive already. And the underground of electric charging vehicles will have the drivers finding them on the app faster than any sign that would ever be up on a highway. They already know where they're going. They plan the routes.
Right, thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I actually, Councillor Jarvis addressed most of the questions in regards with our neighbors. I just wanted to also know that we approached our neighbors prior to going ahead with this on our own. Thank you for that, Jennifer.
Through your worship, Councillor Douglas, I would like to let you know that there is a proponent in MacTier that's interested in putting level 3 chargers at the corner of 169 and High Street, and we'll be looking at working with them as they secure that deal at the corner there. The more chargers, the better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Thank you for that. Good information.
Council, would you like me to reread the resolution? I see no head. Yeah, okay. The resolution moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that Council receives the results from RFP 2020-13 report dated January 11th, 2021, and that Council directs staff to enter into a lease agreement with Green Lots for a 10-year period to install 2 level 3 50 kilowatt chargers, and that Council directs staff to ensure that the 2 parking spaces used for these installations are further replaced by Green Lots at no cost to the township to the west of the municipal building in front of the administration office. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried. Thank you. Ms. Schneider, I believe the next report is yours as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a food waste, one-year food waste audit that the municipality would like to engage with, especially at the staff level. The objective of this is to support the provincial policy statement that one day we'll be able to reduce our waste by 70% by 2025. And this is a grassroots initiative. I'm encouraging staff to be able to participate in a food waste audit as ambassadors to the program, so that as we share the good news of our greenhouse gas emissions being reduced, hopefully significantly, we can encourage our residents to participate in green bin program if they have delivery, a curbside pickup, or if they wish to obtain a container and take it up to the transfer station. So I present this report to you for your approval.
Council, any comments? Councillor Bochek.
Thanks for the report, Jennifer. My question is, I don't know how to put this and be sensitive to other people's feelings, but we compost here. Most of my neighbors compost here. Is there any thought? I mean, we always rely on government and cost factors to do things like this. I've never used a green bin in my life. I never will. I compost in my backyard. I use my own compost for my gardens. I'm just wondering if there's, from your side of things, is there a way that we can promote home composting? I just feel like this program costs millions of dollars to have in place. And really it's a redundant thing if you're composting yourself. And it's, you know, banana peels and apple cores going into your home compost. I'm just wondering if there's any thought of the sustainability officer reaching out to the general population and encouraging home composting.
Through your worship, that's a very good point of this program, is to encourage both myself and staff members and yourselves to encourage people to do home composting and be more aware of what goes into waste. We would encourage home composting. There's no problem with that. The issue that many people have are animals in their area, and home composting containers have been swiped clean by bears in one swoop, no matter how sturdy they are. And we see that also with waste on roads where animals get involved. So you can have many options to participate in reducing your overall waste that goes to landfills, and composting is great. This food waste program already exists. We are just encouraging our residents to take up and be a part, be a part of the overall solution.
Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Just on the same vein that Councillor Bochek is referring to, I think for some of our inland lake and also for the bay people that are boat access especially, this becomes maybe a little bit inconvenient and difficult, but I do believe that most people would like to do composting, but as mentioned, it's an animal situation with getting the right composter. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to look into having some of this money or some of this opportunity spent to investigate what composting there may be available for bear-proof composting, for instance, or education, including with some sort of composting system. I do believe there is composting systems out there that you can use that are maybe not bear-proof, but certainly with the education, they would be less enticing to bears and may encourage our residents, our seasonal residents especially.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Councillor Douglas, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for us to do this one-year audit to provide empirical information to the district and our residents about how we can reduce our fees and associated costs of composting as opposed to putting food in a landfill. It's a one-year audit. At the end of 1 year, we'll be able to provide you with data that will help to support campaigns that we could go to the district to ask for with respect to bear-proof bins for food waste, as well as increasing the green bin program and working with our residents to even be able to purchase wholesale composters that are bear safe at their homes through the district. So there's a lot of good that can come of this. just by simply putting an apple core in the right bin as opposed to putting it in a garbage can.
CEO Gunby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify to council that this report is asking that we do this in our township buildings, not necessarily have all of the public involved at this moment. And we're not asking for any funds at all. We're just looking for directions to permit us to start this at home first before we sort of increase it to the members of the public later.
Councillor Rianko, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Jennifer, my wife and I have gone high tech. We've got a warm composting farm in our garage, and there's no smell, and it's very compact, and it takes all our kitchen waste and composts it into a very high quality fertilizer. That bin itself is very compact. We purchased what they call red wiggly worms. And if the staff wanted to have one of these bins in the building, I would offer you some of our red wigglies because they're expensive, but it's well worth it. So maybe you can take a look at that option. And if you wanted to write an article on it, it'd be really good. So look it up. It's warm composting farms, and it's rather high tech, and it's better than having your composter outside for the bears.
Thank you, Councillor. Through your worship, Councillor Ranko, is that from a composting that we're talking about?
It's a composting system, but they use worms. And it takes all your kitchen waste and so on, and you can keep the device in your house because there's absolutely no smell to it, and it's great, and it makes the best fertilizer.
Through your worship, I'll take you up on that offer, Councillor Wanko, and when it's we're able to come to your house and take some photos and do a little story, I think that's a great solution. And whether we put them in our lunchroom, that will be up to the CAO, but at this point, we're just trying to get the initiative started.
It's interesting to hear.
I could give you a small, compact one to start out with, and you'll like it.
So I think it's probably the first time I've heard about worms being considered high tech. Councillor Cooper.
I can vouch for it. I've been up to Paul's. Paul, you've had that for many years.
Councillor Bocek, I've recognized Councillor Cooper.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm glad to hear about your visits, Brian, and I'll listen afterwards. But briefly, I was going to suggest that we have an educational opportunity here with respect to various solutions to green bins, and I'd be most interested to hear a variety of different solutions in due course. I think we could educate our constituents on this matter. I do know that, sort of more conventional composting does attract animals. In fact, it also can attract rattlesnakes. So we need to be able to educate the public on some of these things. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jarvis, you want to jump in?
Yes, I applaud our Director of Sustainability on this project, and I think it's a great idea. I have an issue. We do compost on our island, and it's been it's great for the raccoons. They love it. And yes, as for Councillor Cooper's comments, rattlesnakes seem to like hanging out there too, but it's probably because their food source tends to visit the compost. I have no problem with that either. Rattlesnakes are kind of fun, but I think that the whole concept that it's the municipal buildings that are trying to work forward on this and provide an example and an audit is a great idea, and we should be moving ahead with it.
I'm just going to add in my bit and 2 bits, and one is first of all, I want to applaud our Director of Sustainability for both the last report and this report, because they're steps in the right direction for this township, in my opinion. We have to obviously do many more of them, and this is just an initial steps, and I think that's very, very good. I also think that the composting is extremely important. I'm very glad to see our administration take that on. I mean, I think it's, to me, one of the things that's very frustrating with all our lengthy conversations about solid waste that we've had over the last couple of years, far too little has been around the topic of composting and the fact that that makes up, depending upon whom you ask, anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the waste or the volume of waste that has to be handled. And to me, my dream is some point down the road when you go to a bin site, not only will you have a bin for containers and a bin for paper products and a bin for solid waste, but you also have a bin for compostable waste. Anyway, that's I'm getting way ahead of ourselves.
Well, through your worship, I thank you for the accolades. This is definitely, we're bringing forward a lot of sustainable initiatives, but I do need to pass out the accolades to our CAO. I come flying into her office on a pretty regular basis, or these days via Zoom with sustainable ideas, and she's adaptable and she's aware of them and she's willing to give them a try. So this is two that you have seen in front of you. We have another one where we are trying to reduce our emissions by reusing with reused bottles, beeswax wraps. I mean, we're just kind of going really hard at this. So if it's okay, I'd love to pass the accolades on to Jess, and then of course our senior team. There's somebody outside of my department that has to pick up this food waste and take it to a transfer station. So it's an effort by everybody.
I know, and I think it's terrific and going in the right direction. The motion in front of us, moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council receives the Food Waste Audit 2021 report dated January 11th, 2021, and that Council directs staff to engage in a 1-year pilot project at the Administration Building, Community Services Building, and South Shop, and report back to Council findings of the pilot project. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now for our favorite topic to dislike, taxes. And I will hand it over to Ms. Anderson to talk about the interim tax levy motion that has to come in front of us every year about this time.
Good morning, everybody. This is, as Mayor Coaster mentioned, something we see on an annual basis. It is for the collection of 50% of our final taxes based on last year, and it is to help financially sustain the municipality and also support our payments to the districts and school boards.
Okay, the motion in front of me reads, moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council received the 2021 interim tax levy bylaw report dated January 11th, 2021, and that Council hereby enacts bylaw 2021-001, the first of the year, to provide an interim tax levy for all classes and to provide for the payment of taxes. Any discussion? Councillor Cooper.
So I just wanted to encourage that we use our interim tax levy mailings. I assume this is a mailing, is that correct?
Yes.
To think about obtaining other information. We don't have email addresses for a lot of our constituents. Why don't we put something in there and some encouragement to them, financial, to provide that for us? It's a suggestion that I've heard has been used in even in other countries, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We are having trouble communicating with our constituents, and I would suggest this might be a way of making sure that we have access to everybody. So I don't know, it's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are working on a report for council for February's meeting. Unfortunately, it will not be in time for the interim billing, but we are working on a report for council as that discussion came up in December. So you should see something soon on that aspect.
Councillor Hazelton.
So bridging from what Councillor Cooper just said, I'd like to add an amendment to this resolution to include a one-pager or a half-pager or something that asks our residents to provide us their email addresses so that we can communicate with them. This is a unique opportunity to where we are going to be sending something out to every single resident, and it would be a shame to miss the opportunity of sending out this communication without having a request for email addresses or other forms of communication. Thank you.
I think you've changed the topic in 100%. Ms. Way.
Sorry, I was just going to state that that has implications for privacy law and advertising laws. And I believe Ms. Anderson is already working on a report to come back to council regarding this that will speak to those pieces. So I would not recommend that that come forward at this point in time, given the fact that there's so many other implications that would tie into that, that would need to be taken into consideration.
I mean, I would agree in that I 100% agree that communications with our constituents has room for improvement. There's no question about that. And staff are well aware of council's concern. But this particular resolution is strictly around setting tax rates for the first half of the year, or at least an interim tax levy. And it's got nothing to do with communication. And I think we'd be just muddying the waters by adding an extra line to it on a totally different topic, of which we know staff is already preparing a report. Councillor Cooper?
I'm not sure about this, but I thought I heard that this is a mailing, that there will be a mailing going out, and we're missing an opportunity, which is, I think, what Councillor Hazelton was pointing out. I didn't make that comment, but I certainly think it. So why can't we send something out this time?
The resolution in front of us is that enact a bylaw to set an interim tax levy. We're not setting a bylaw that we mail out to our constituents. And I think that's where, if you want to add something to new business and talk about all that, then I think that is not inappropriate. But here we're simply wanting to set the tax levy. Councillor Hazelton.
So what we are doing here is we're passing a bylaw to set a tax levy, but no communication will be sent out to any resident about that. You're trying to suggest here, I think what I'm seeing here is we approve a tax levy and then staff go and send it out. So it's really a two-part thing. It is a mailing out to our residents. And I think what we have to be, unless I'm missing something here, the resolution has implications beyond the words in the resolution. And all I'm trying to suggest here with this amendment is that we include the communication of a request for ways of communicating with our residents, email being one suggestion, perhaps other phone numbers or whatever. But we have an implicit communication going out to our residents. And yes, we could unhook this and add this in a new business, but it needs to be discussed before this thing goes out, because we don't want to lose the opportunity of what is taking place here. And it is a communication to our residents in addition to us approving an interim tax levy.
Ms. Way.
Sorry, currently, if this request goes out, we have no way as a township to manage that privacy and that privacy information banks, and then we'd be in violation of MFIPA and other privacy laws if we continue on this path. I believe if the key goal is communication, then perhaps direction could be given to promote the avenues that we currently have existing, and then when Ms. Anderson's report comes forward next month, we can discuss the fact that perhaps we need another subscription service or something to that effect that would allow staff to manage this information. But right now we don't have a way to manage that. And if we ask for it and we collect it, then we're legally responsible for how we manage it. And right now we have no legal way of doing that. So I'm very hesitant to tie these two together. And as well as the mayor stated, this is literally just a resolution about supporting the tax levy. And it's kind of two separate issues. I understand the correlation about how this is an opportunity to communicate. Perhaps Ms. Shire has a way that she can, we can include some type of communication on how we can find information and provide that out to the public at this point in time, but asking to collect their personal information. And yes, email addresses, phone numbers, et cetera, can be deemed personal information. We have no way to manage that legally right now. So I think it's kind of a cart before the horse situation if we put that out asking for that information at this point in time. Thank you.
Councillor Bocek.
I think everyone knows that I'm not the world's greatest financial advisor, but a little bit of clarity on tax levy would help me. Completely unrelated, and fellas, sorry if I'm getting sidetracked from your emailing and mailing and that, but the interim tax levy that we're talking about, this is simply the first quarter tax bill that goes out to our residents?
Ms. Anderson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we send out 2 billings. You're correct. So this is the first one of the 2. And this is based just on solely collecting 50% of what they were billed last year for the purposes of cash flow. So in order for us to pay our bills, to pay education taxes, because those are quarterly, and to pay district including, I mean, those are part of our bills, but also to pay the district levy.
And this is
Okay, so
something-
my understanding is that things have not been completed to a point where we inform our residents of what their taxes are going to be for this year and lock it down and take a percentage of it now. This is simply give us some money now so we can pay our bills, and forthcoming will be all the accounting of increases or whatever.
That's correct. We base it on last year because we know it's going to be about that same amount.
Right.
And by billing 50%, then it gives us a leeway. And it's also the opportunity is given to us through the Municipal Act.
So in saying that, the second billing that will go out will obviously reflect 2021 increases or whatever staying the same. So nobody's going to see an increase in this first tax levy over what they paid last year, but the second billing will accommodate for any increases for the year.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
This is a resolution that Councillor Bocek, you've probably seen half a dozen times before in the prior 6 Januaries you were on council. And every municipality sees these things about this time of year because it's just a matter of routine as allowed and directed by the province. Ms. Gunby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify that by the time we send out our next tax bill, we should have something to communicate about a system for better communications. But at this time, as the clerk stated, we don't have a way to sort of keep track of these things. And I would hate to waste people's time trying to get information from ratepayers. So we are in the midst of doing something. We've heard council the last couple of years, but we're trying to get some new systems in place that will help us with communication better, as well as many other internal workings. So like I said, by the next time we send something out, we can definitely send something in that tax bill with better information.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. And I realize we've been raising this for 2 years. The next tax bill doesn't go out, I believe, until September. So we're now 6 months away. Is that correct?
It'll be going out in June.
You're muted.
So thank you. It's sooner than I thought, but still quite some way off. So we're missing one opportunity. We have one in June again. I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay, the resolution in front of me, moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved, the council received the 2021 interim tax levy bylaw report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council hereby enacts bylaw 2021-001 to provide for an interim tax levy for all classes and to provide for the payment of taxes. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. Ms. Anderson, our annual borrowing bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as mentioned, it is an annual bylaw that we need to pass in order to meet some of our needs financially, one being the credit card that we have, and the other is just in case as a backup if we ever need to go into our line of credit at the bank. We have not used the line of credit at the bank for quite some time now, but it is there for the purpose of in case we do need to.
Thank you. The resolution in front of me, moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved that council receives the annual borrowing bylaw report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council hereby enacts bylaw 2021-002 to authorize the borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021. Any comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. And our next request is in regards to the sole sourcing of a plotting printer and folding machine. That is you as well, Ms. Anderson?
Yes, it is. Thanks
go
for your
ahead.
attention. Thanks for your attention. We've done many upgrades in the last year to our technology, and some we are still working with, such as our printers and our plotter. Unfortunately, we haven't had the leeway or the enough warning about the plotter and some of our printers that are coming up for renewal. So we ask that council allow us to sole source for this one time being the plotting machine and the folding machine. It will save us money, therefore it's a positive. And in the future, though, we would like to go out to tender to ensure that we are getting the best bang for our buck.
Thank you. The motion in front of me is moved by Councillor Wienko, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council receives a request for sole sourcing plotting printer and folding machine report dated January 11th, 2021. And the council agrees that the plotting printer and folding machine leases be renewed with the current vendors. Council, any discussion? Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Wienko.
Am I on? There we go. Sorry. I always worry about sole sourcing. That has a bad connotation right off the bat. We've seen the implications with municipal governments and provincial, federal governments when they're accused of having sole sourced, and so I'm a little afraid of that. I'm curious to know how we let two leases basically lapse without anybody paying attention to the fact that they're about to lapse, so that we couldn't move ahead on this earlier, so that it wouldn't have to be sole sourced. I mean, I have a son who's with Xerox, and he could probably provide this stuff for you if you want. I can get a quote for you. I'm sure that would be probably not a good idea, but just a thought. Yeah, I guess so. The question is, how do we let these two leases lapse in the first place? And yeah, I guess that's probably the only question. How do we let these things lapse? We knew they were coming. Somebody must have known they were coming up. What happened?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It has been a difficult year between COVID and new staffing and all the other technological changes that we've been having. So it's a bit of two things. I mean, it wasn't well documented somewhere where a new person coming into the environment would know this information. Therefore, that's part of the reason. And you're right a little bit. There's a lot of companies out there that could provide quotes on some printers. The plotter is a little bit different due to its size and its function. So we're looking at doing an RFP shortly for our other printing machines, which are more common, where we can get a quote fairly fast. But to go through a full RFP is lengthy as far as preparing it, making sure you have all the proper information, giving the appropriate amount of time for people to reply, and then evaluating that RFP and awarding it to somebody. So it's a simple yet timely process that we just don't find we have at this time. But if council wishes, we still could go to that. I mean, it's not a do or die situation.
Yeah, I guess my concern once again is the thinking that most people don't look on sole sourcing as being something that's good from the public standpoint, when municipalities are taking their tax money and going to one source to purchase things. If you think our butts are covered in that regard, I have no issue. I think we're better off getting this stuff in place than not. I think it's better to have it have an operational municipal office than a non-operational one. But okay, you answered my question anyway. Thank you very much.
Councillor Yanko.
Yeah, I noticed that that the plotter, he says, is quite dated, and you can't get parts for it. So yeah, I assume that the plotter is going to continue lasting for a year or so. That's my first question. And the second question is, when would we go to tender? Is it just a 1 year extension?
So for the plotter, that's probably the worst of these two machines when we look at having difficulties. The plotter is a major pain for those in the planning and building department on a daily basis. The folding machine is still working fairly well. We're just afraid that one day it will quit. But the plotter is not working well at all. It is actually avoided on a regular basis if people can not use it. So that's how bad that one is. As far as if we were looking at an RFP, we're probably looking at about a month to 2 months out. And then we're looking at a good 2 months for having that awarded, and then depending on the availability of these machines as well, because they're not stored and at a regular rate, unlike the printing machines.
So for clarification, are new plotters coming in?
No, we have not ordered anything. We have been in contact with the current supplier, and they can get us a machine within a week or two of sole sourcing if council approves. But we have not guaranteed them anything. It is still open up to council's decisions.
Sorry, Councillor Yanko, you got a follow-up.
Well, I'm just confused here. We're going for sole sourcing. Are we getting an updated machine?
Yes.
Or we just continue it? Oh, so we are getting an updated machine.
Yeah, brand new machine, and the lease will be for 3 years, I believe.
Okay, so we're getting a new machine. Both machines are new, and
yes,
for 3 years. Oh, okay. I don't have a problem with that then. Okay.
Councillor Cooper, did I see your hand?
Yes, and I just wanted to understand, because I wasn't seeing anything here about a year extension. I thought it was machines being replaced. So I'm glad that's been clarified. Thank you.
Councillor Wojcik.
Thanks for the report. And might I suggest that we establish a warranty on this equipment that is at least as long as the period of the lease, because if we have equipment now that we're leasing and it's not working, there's a problem, because they should be coming and fixing it, and it should be working properly if we're paying a lease on it and it's under warranty. So my first thing, if there's going to be a lapse in time here and we're leasing this current equipment is not working, should be a warranty on it. Get them in and get it fixed and get it working in the interim until we do the upgrade. But the new upgrade, I want to make sure that is fully warranted for the period of the lease, so that 2 years into the 3 year lease, we're not looking to replace it again because it's not working. So if we could just oversee that and make sure that we have good solid warranty on this product. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may answer.
Please.
There is it is fully warranted while it's on leased, and our current machine, that is who is also pushing us to change it, is because our current machine is so dated. I believe it's over 7 years old. It is so dated that they have trouble replacing the parts. So although they do warranty it, it could take them weeks to find parts, and eventually will become obsolete. So they are also pushing for the change in equipment.
Thank you.
Councillor Jarvis?
Was it indicated here that if we renew, replace, whatever we're doing here, there's a cost savings involved in that? Okay.
So the plotter, we are saving about $200 per month. So overall, I believe between the two equipment, we're saving about $2,500 a year, which isn't millions of dollars, but every penny counts.
All right. Moved by Councillor Rienko, second by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council receives a request for sole sourcing plotting printer and Foley machine report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council agrees that the plotting printer and Foley machine leases be renewed with the current vendors. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried. Thank you. And Ms. Anderson, I believe this is round 4 for you, our travel and expense policy.
This policy has come to council in December, and we have reviewed it and made a few changes to the wording that is being used, mostly to the definition of who is applicable to, or who must apply to this bylaw. So a few changes are made, and we hope it's to council's satisfaction.
Thank you. Councillor Bochek.
Again, thanks for the report. I'm just wondering if you're going to make a sheet or an application available through our website to be used for submitting your travel expenses. I'm just, if we have to go to a conference in Toronto or whatever, we incur expenses. Instead of coming into the office during COVID-19, picking up the sheet, filling it out, bringing it back to the office, can we automate that so it's on the website, we can download it and then upload it back to you?
Ms. Anderson.
I believe that we could definitely make something available to council electronically. I don't know if the website is the best means for that communication, but you can definitely email any of us, and we would gladly send you a form to fill out and send back in electronically, and we will process that request.
Thank you.
I see no other hands. Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that council receive the travel and expense policy draft number 2 report dated January 11th, 2021. The council adopt the travel and expense policy FIN-2021-01. All those in favor? And that is passed. Okay. Increased parking fine. Ms. Anderson, I think you're off the hook now. Ms. King.
Yes, yeah, good morning. So this report is just to talk about the parking fines over the 2020 season. So there was a pretty big increase in parking issues through this summer, and there was a lot of repeat offenders. So in order to, a goal of this report would be to be a greater deterrent to this double parking. So we're looking to increase our early payment from $35 to $50, and then our set fine would then be increased from $50 to $75.
Okay, Councillor Douglas.
Good morning, Karina. Karina, I'm not so sure that, with the repeat offenders, a $15 change is really going to make a difference. Is there any opportunity to make those fees higher, much higher, or is there mandated by the province or some jurisdiction where we are not allowed to do that?
Through your chair, we can make them higher. Why that I picked that amount was because I compared all of the municipalities around us. So we were already mid-pack to high from what we were. So this puts us above higher than everybody else around us, I think, except Tiny. Tiny had a big problems as well. So they went higher. I think they're 75 and 90 that they just got passed. So around those amounts, that's definitely something we can look at. One thing, when you do go higher, there's a greater chance that someone will challenge the ticket, which is fine. Like, we're prepared to do that in court, and our evidence and all those things, I feel comfortable with that. It's just more that it might be an increase of legal fees and things like that, because it is that higher amount. Just for an example, like an accessible permit ticket is $300, and almost every everyone usually gets challenged because they're hoping it'll get dropped just that little bit lower, so it's not so costly. So often those are challenged, but that's kind of where we are anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hazelton, followed by Councillor Wienko.
So thank you for that report, Karina. Could I just ask you, because I have never dealt with these fines, you say an early payment. So when you put a ticket on a car, the fee is today $50, but if they show up and they pay it early, it's $35. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so right now, so within the first 7 days, so if I would ticket your car today, within the first 7 days, it's $35. After that 7 days, it goes to the set fine of $50. So it's just an encouragement to get people to pay right away, so we don't have to go through our ARIS and lookup processes, which just cost a little bit more money. So that's why there's the early set fine, early payments.
Right. So if we raise the fines to $75, I wanted to pick up on what Councillor Douglas was, I think, getting at here. If we raise the fees to $75 and we had repeat offenders that had previously fines within the last 12 months, could we have a system that says your early payment fee does not apply if you've had a fine in the last 12 months? And that way, anybody who is a repeat offender is going to keep getting dinged at the top number, regardless of how fast they decide they're going to come in and pay it, because they are a repeat offender. Is that possible? And how much staff effort would that be to do that? Because I'm assuming that you've got the information of who they are and when they have been fined in the past. Is that workable, or am I just getting too complex?
I think it might be a bit too complex just for staff time to have that on our systems. It's definitely something we could look into, and I can call around and see if anyone else does it, but I don't know of anyone in our area that does that at this time. And sometimes people, they'll drop money in our drop box, especially with COVID, because they're not coming in. So we only have so many options. So if they dropped that money, then we wouldn't have to chase them for the extra money, and whether we would get that or not, I don't know whether it'd be worth the time that it would take to do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Wienko.
Karina, can you briefly indicate to us where our problem parking is in the township? Just some of the locations that you're having problems with. That's my first question. The second question, if they're parking for the weekend, can they get a parking ticket each day? So the first day would be $50. The next day, they'll get another ticket for $50. So those are the two questions I have.
Yeah, of course. So through your chair, the problem areas through the summer was really Georgian Bay Road, Crooked Bay area, which is where McCrae Park is. So that was our main area, which before and through my time here, I've never issued a ticket on that road until this summer. It was quite busy. So that's really the spot. There's obviously other areas for sure, but that's the big one. And what we did through the summer is if they were parked there on the Friday, they got a ticket Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's where we're trying to change this, hopefully, so when those people come back, or if they don't come back because of those higher tickets, so that's, yeah, we'll issue them every day, and I think this year we're definitely going to have to look at towing people out of the road if we can't get down, and that makes a big statement as well. So this will hopefully, the change will initiate and stop the people who, they don't want to pay the ticket, but it might come to that we're going to have to start towing, and then that'll change it for sure.
Chief Undum.
Just to build on Karina's point, so the other area of parking concern was on the district road by 6 Mile Lake by the channel there. We had a number of issues in that area. Just so council's aware that if we start to see that we have a car that's becomes known to us, we have the option of towing that vehicle right away. We don't have to issue I'm going to say a parking ticket and then leave the vehicle. We can issue the parking ticket and call for the tow to remove the vehicle right away. The other issue for parking that has started to come up last year was that people are parking on private properties on our private roads, and that started to become an issue as COVID-19 started to to increase in its length of time. So that potential is a risk coming in this spring. And Karina has been working with the OPP and is contacting some cottage associations to provide them with the information to help with that problem. So we've been working on it. We had a conversation as late as last week with the district to help try to alleviate the parking concerns on the district roads. We are going to need some council and some political movement behind that to get the district to move with that quickly, because it's still ongoing.
Thank you. Am I seeing any other hands? I'm not seeing any other hands. So what I have, the resolution in front of me is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council received the increased parking fines report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council directs staff to seek permission from the Ministry of the Attorney General of Ontario to raise the fines for parking offences from $50 set fine to $75 set fine. Any further discussion? Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Bochek.
Just going back to Chief Van Dam's issue there with the district. Can you maybe explain that a bit more? Because maybe there's a resolution required to go up to the district on this issue if you want us to get involved. I'm not quite sure where you were going with that.
So council passed 2 years ago to increase the fine, to ask the district to increase the fines on district roads. And to date, there had not been any action on it. Myself and the CAO, along with senior management, met with the lawyer from the district, and the CAO is going to have another conversation with the CAO from the district to try to get that process sped up.
If I may just add on to that, Your Worship, I do not.
Ms. Gunby.
Thank you very much. I don't think a resolution is needed just because we have already started the process, and Jamie Clow at the district solicitor, has stated he has initiated it because somewhere along the lines, he was never given the direction from his CAO to start the process of reviewing the bylaw. So he's taken it upon himself to start doing it. And as the chief has stated, we did have a meeting last week about this, and he will continue to work on it. And I will continue to discuss with the district CAO to make sure this gets done very, very soon.
Thank you. Councillor Bochek, followed by Councillor Douglas.
Just to touch on a topic that Chief Van Dam mentioned, and that's private roads. And my question is directed to Karina. I'll give you an example. Birch Acres Drive, South Bay, Honey Harbor. There is a cul-de-sac at the one end of the road. It fills up on weekends with 20 plus cars of people walking to their island residence or ice fishing, and completely clogs up the road. Do we have the jurisdiction? Now, some of those people were granted permission to be there. Obviously, the Cottage Association is going to have to issue them a window hanger or something to identify that those vehicles have permission to be on that private road. But do you have the ability to go onto those private roads and ticket the ice fishermen or the island residents that park there illegally and walk out to their islands close to shore?
So through your chair, unfortunately, no, we do not. Like, unless we're on a township road, we cannot issue tickets on private. So it would be the road association's responsibility to address those concerns.
Perfect, short and simple. Thank you very much.
Councillor Douglas.
On that same vein, what would be the process that the road associations would have to go through? Is that through the OPP or?
So that's what I'm hoping to get with the OPP is, and it's with the community officer now, it's to get a process that they suggest. And like, because, you know, there should be no trespassing signs and all those things to help them do their job. So basically the OPP can do a no trespassing. That's where they can help. But as the owner, just as if someone parked on your front lawn, as long as they're an association and have the representative, they can address the issue themselves. So they could tow that vehicle, just like if someone parked on my front lawn, I could call towing and get the vehicle removed. So that's something that we're hoping to put out some information from the township or from the police as well, so that we can say, this is what we can help with, this is what OPP can help with, but this is what you can do, or these are the options for you as the association. So that's something we definitely hope to have out by the spring, so that if there are these issues, we can help the associations deal with them.
Okay, thank you. I think I agree with Councillor Bochek. Some of this really is a bigger problem in the winter time for some of the lake communities for the ice fishing. Just another quick question. Is there any appetite with the rest of council, if I may ask, to increase these fines to $100 and not 75? Seeing it's taken us so long to get them bumped up already. What we're trying to do is discourage people from actually doing this. Question.
Councillor Jarvis.
I was going to ask the same question. And so I'm curious, I noticed that we had a significant number of fines that were issued and paid for last in 2020. Karina, can you tell me how many of those fines were paid early versus how many were paid, the full amount? Do you know that?
I don't know that at this time, but I could figure it out for sure.
It would be interesting to know. And I'm thinking that, I think if, of course, I don't have an issue with this because I don't have a private road or a marina that gets clogged up with cars, but I know that it is an issue in a certain number of areas, and it's a very concerning issue. And if COVID's going to continue with restrictions, and it looks like we're certainly going into spring this way, and it's already been mentioned that during ice fishing season there's an issue too. Would a $100 fine be more appropriate? And two questions come out of that is, one, currently, if we reset the fine at 75, what would be the minimum payment? And two, if we were to reset to 100, what would be the minimum fine? That's a couple of questions for you, Karina. Sorry.
I'll try and answer them all. So normally they do that $15 difference. So we would minus 15 from the 100. If the 100 is our set fine, that's what we would want. Then it would be the 75, as long as my math is correct, for the early payment. So that would be like I said, Tiny has just approved this as far as I know, and then that's what they've gone to. But they had a lot more problems than we did for sure this summer. But it's still obviously an issue.
But if they increase their fines, people will start moving up in our area even more. So,
is there any other questions that I missed there?
No, I think you got it. I was a lot of observations. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
I would support Councillor Douglas' suggestion. I really think we need to put some teeth in this. And so anyway, I think $100 would make some sense.
I would like to ask a question. That is, I noticed that, right now you're suggesting $75. Hang on, let me scroll to you have a set fine for $75 for parking on the street, but $150 for parking along a fire route. And I couldn't help but notice the early payment is actually for along a fire route. You save them $50 if they pay it early and go down to 100. My question for you is, how did you find fire route versus on a road, when I'm thinking that I know on Georgian Bay Road, and that's the road I take to get to my place. So I'm very familiar with all the excessive amount of cars that were there this year compared to any year in history. That one of the comments that Chief Undum made was that Georgian Bay Road is a fire route because the parking was an issue because a fire truck wouldn't be able to get down it. And so I'm wondering, how do you define fire route versus road when the biggest issue of cars parking on that road was they would block passage of a fire truck?
I'll take that question, Your Worship. So the biggest thing is with the when you're charging them for parking in a fire route, you're charging them under the FPPA. So Brad has to, the road authority, which would be the designated as Brad, has to designate the road as a fire route. And we can designate any road in the municipality as a fire route. However, when we go onto private roads, that creates another issue. So that's where we are. we've been, as we're trying to cure this parking problem, we've made the commitment here to start that we're going to tow more vehicles because they're looking at over $300 once that tow truck hooks up to the vehicle. They're well over $300 to get their vehicle out of impoundment. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, just take one more run at this. I think if there is an appetite to increase the ticket amount to $100 for the parking in the no parking zone, that we should also be looking at the fire route ticket as not having any discount whatsoever. If you were parked there, I don't think, I mean, that just puts them back to what the cost of a ticket of no parking zone would be. I mean, I would encourage that we leave it at 150, no discount. If you park there, you shouldn't be there. And hopefully this is going to be a strong year with some, if that gets changed, and as well as the towing efforts, that this becomes a non-problem, which will cost us less in the long run for our bylaw people.
So since, yeah, that's something we can do just as we've done with the accessible. We can just take out the 100 for the Whopper Fire route and it would just be a 150, no option for early payment. So that's definitely something we can do, which would look much better if we're going to do the 75 to 100.
Okay, I'm sensing from council a willingness to change the resolution that's in front of us from where right now it reads from a $50 set fine to a $75 set fine, and it seems the council is willing to go to a $100 set fine. Can I get head nods? All right, so I'm seeing nods from both councillors Douglas and Jarvis, and it was originally their motion, so they're obviously accepting this friendly amendment. So right now it reads as amended, moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council receives the increased parking fines report dated January 11th, 2021, and that council directs staff to seek permission from the Ministry of the Attorney General of Ontario to raise the fines for parking offences from a $50 set fine to a $100 set fine. All those in favor? Councillor Wayanko, you wanted to make an observation? You're waving your hand enthusiastically. That's more than a vote.
Well, what about the early payment? Right now it's $50. Should that go to 75?
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't know if, do you need a motion on that? Well, I got three questions. I better slow down here. One, do you have to apply to the ministry with regards to the early payment rate?
So yeah, so it would be in one, I wouldn't put it in one whole package.
Okay.
So I know that the set fine would be 100 and that's what I'm asking for that approval. And we just lessen that by 15 to the 75 for early payment.
You know that when you keep saying lessening by 15, but then when you say 75, that's actually $25 less.
Oh, sorry.
Can we leave it then with you to adjust all the other numbers accordingly? So I think I've already seen everybody vote in favor. Can I consider this carried? I can. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Good job, guys, on the parking.
Yes. That ends our staff report section, and we're about to go into new business. I'm going to propose, being it now that it's 10:53, that we take a coffee break or bio break or whatever you want to call it, and let's resume at 11:10, if that's agreeable to everybody. Okay, we're back at 11:10. Thank you. I have 11:09. I thought I'd see more faces by now. Okay, it's 11:10 and let's reconvene this meeting. Good, I see our clerk, so she can make sure we're all doing things in line. And we're now going into new business. And the first item on new business is the MMAH Financial Indicator Review. And Councillor Hazelton, I believe you want to discuss something in regard to this report.
I don't want to discuss it. I just wanted staff to explain it. We had one of these a couple of years ago, and I thought it would be useful to have a narrative, but what I have heard from staff is that they want to go and prepare a report and tell us about it next month.
Ms. Anderson, are you representing staff on this?
I most certainly can, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we can definitely prepare a report. This is something that's prepared annually through our FIR and is available online for not just our municipality, but any municipality within Ontario. But we can prepare a report if you'd like. We weren't sure if you had any specific items that you wanted us to speak to or just the report overall.
Councillor Hazelton?
Yeah, I guess what I was interested in here, and I think it would be useful for us as council to understand how are we doing compared to goals and so on, and we can see the numbers, but when we discussed this a couple of years ago, it was actually fairly helpful for us to understand how staff perceived us as a township on our financial indicators, and that that understanding of what staff feels is, I think, useful for us as council to therefore determine whether or not this is the kind of council guidance that we should be providing, or if we should be suggesting that we go in different directions. So thank you.
And Ms. Anderson, I understood staff is now planning a report for next month?
I wasn't 100% aware of that. I will bring it up to Julie. I was not tasked with that report, but it would either be myself or Julie. So you will see it in the next month or so.
Ms. Way.
That's the resolution today is specifically requesting that report come forward.
Oh, I didn't know I had a resolution for today.
Page 22.
It was in your new township email.
He's always
Okay,
had one.
All right. Sorry, I got one page ahead of myself, and I apologize to our clerk. The resolution in front of me is moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Rienko. Be it resolved that council directs staff to provide a report regarding the township's financial indicator review as provided by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor? All right, that is carried. Thank you. All right, so the next page in front of me is for item 9B, District Muskoka Council Composition Review Discussion Only. And I believe, Councillor Cooper, you're the one who requested that this appear on our agenda, so I'll let you lead off the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier. I believe that the council has been sent a fair bit of information now regarding a variety of different studies and so forth related to this. On top of which we've seen communication from our neighboring municipality, who are in fact having a meeting, I believe, tomorrow in Muskoka Lakes with council and constituents specifically on this matter. And I'm bringing it forward mainly to make sure that everybody understands the implications of this. That's why I'm suggesting, I'm not sure this is the right opportunity or that we have the time necessarily to go into this in great detail, part of which would be all of us getting up to speed in reading reports on this, but a fundamental understanding of what the implications are, including that if we go down to 12 councillors, as has been proposed by the committee, that in fact, we will be, I think, in a very challenging position in terms of having district councillors representing two very distinct or somewhat distinct communities that we have in the township of Georgian Bay, and as was identified during our ward boundary review in 2012-13. So as is being suggested, for example, in Muskoka Lakes by Muskoka Lakes Association and Friends of Muskoka, a better number might be 18. The other thing I would point out, and I think I sent this in some of the reports that I sent out, that there's some, I believe, some very questionable data that has been provided to reach this decision of 12 as it pertains to the data that has come out from on Veronics. So I'm just making everybody aware of this and think that we need to bring this forward for further discussion. I'm also suggesting that I think we need to, at some point, consult with our community. 50% of our taxes go over to the District of Muskoka. We're going to have even less control if we go to 12, and especially if there's a weighted vote. Then it becomes, my vote's not as worth as much as somebody else's. So why would I even want to attend a meeting like that? So there you go. There's some of my observations, and I'd be happy to open it up.
Okay, Councillor Wienko.
I guess I've been pretty active on this issue also. I am 100% behind the letter that came out from Muskoka Lakes and what they call the Friends of Muskoka, where they're suggesting a district council of 18 members. This would resolve our concern in our township that we have 3 members on district council. And it also proposes the weighted vote issue. So I would like to get all of council behind this issue of 18 members and 9 from the townships and 9 from the towns, and equal voting weight. If we all agree to that, then I don't know if we would need public input. I can't see why the public wouldn't agree to that. What are they going to debate? They don't want equal voting weight. I doubt it. And I don't know if they would want to go down to 12 for the same reason that Councillor Cooper indicated, that we fought so hard to get one councillor from the Bay and one from the inland. So I think if all the councils got behind the Muskoka Lakes and the Friends of Muskoka's letter, then I think that's the way we should go. In addition to this, I did send out a note to all the inland associations. There was 6 of them I sent out, 3 of them have come back, and they've written, I guess, to Muskoka Lakes. There was Gibson Lake, 6 Mile Lake, and Gloucester Pool have sent letters supporting this position, the 18 and the weighted vote. So I think the inland community has spoken. I don't know what the Georgian Bay Association has done. I did send a note to the GBA quite a while ago. I don't know if they got behind it. Maybe somebody from the Bay there can maybe help me out there if the GBA got behind it, but that would be a big block if they got behind it. So I think this would be our town, this should be our township position. And I think I would want to get some kind of concurrence from a member on that committee that that's going to be their position also.
Well, I'll respond to that right away before we go around. One is that the letter written by the Muskoka Lakes Association, I wish I could tell you that I gave them all the information to write it. There was zero communication in advance, but I say I'm a near full agreement with everything they've written. I think that from my perspective, I mean, just as a reminder to all of council, the procedure is, and the MMC, the Municipal Modernization Committee, is meeting again next week, Monday, before the district council meeting. My position, and I stated it in the last meeting, is that I'm not a fan of weighted voting. I don't believe in it. I've also stated that I believe that the townships and the towns should be equally represented in numbers at the district council table. I think that the going from 18 members to 12 members is more of a leap than most people realize. I do know from the reaction I got from the committee last time, playing the, well, then Georgian Bay Coast doesn't have a voice, didn't go over nearly as well as I'd hoped. But I also think that the other aspect of it that nobody's taken into consideration is if we go from 22 councillors to 18, there'll be minor adjustments in how we appoint council members to the various committees, but I think the structure will be more or less the same. If we go down to 12, that is a huge change in the numbers. That's going to be roughly doubling the work of each councillor if the same amount of work has to be done. And I've heard no discussion yet on how we would do that. Would we restructure the whole committee? And if you restructure the whole committee system so that half the councillors on any particular committee, then why bother? Because then that means half the council will be falling asleep while the report's given to the other half of the council when they have a council meeting. Like the whole system should be restructured if we go to 12. And that's, to me, a big leap. It's almost as big, it's not as big a leap, but another leap would be the adjusting the boundaries of the various municipalities, which unfortunately I thought maybe the province would consider in their review a year and a half ago. And of course, obviously they dropped the ball a year ago on that one, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm happy if council here wants to pass a resolution or two. But I'm also here to say that if the resolution resembles the comments that I've heard from 2 councillors so far, it won't change what I'm going to say next week anyway. But I leave that to council's opinion. But that's where I stand. Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Bochek, please.
Thank you. I'm in total agreement on what the letter that came through from the Muskoka. And I would agree that, bringing it to 18 gives us the equalizes the vote throughout the towns and the inland, as well as keeping three of our councillors on. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me or not. Are you able to hear me? Things are a little unstable. Okay. And I think it is important that the Bay is represented as well as the inland for Georgian Bay. And I agree with what you're saying on having 18 opposed to 12 because of changing so much in the actual way business is done up in district. I did in fact hear from our president from the Go Home Lake Association. I know Paul probably reached out to them, but they spoke with me. He spoke with me last night. he is in total agreement as well, and feels that the Lake Association would also, once he has an opportunity to speak with them, that an equal vote is very important for this township at the district level. So I would be in agreement to the 18, keeping the 18 in the structure. And again, I think it's the work that's been done so far is quite significant, and would like to see it go forward with 18 personally.
Thank you, Councillor Bochek.
So I've been thinking about this in a little bit of different vein, and I'm probably going to perk up the ears of our coastal Georgian Bay representatives. If it drops to a system where there's 12 at the district councillor, at election time, hypothetically, and please remember this is hypothetically, if I were to run for district councillor and Al Hazelton were to run for district councillor, I would be elected. And that's unfair because of the population difference. The population in my ward is the largest population in the township. In other words, I would probably get the most votes. So that's very unfair to the people on coastal Georgian Bay, where if they drop to 12, they might not have an opportunity to represent at district, just based on numbers of population and when the vote happens in 2024. So something we need to consider there too, that our representative will be put at district based on the number of votes they receive. And obviously the councillor with the biggest number of constituents is probably going to have an advantage. So I think that needs to be addressed as well.
Well, and what you bring up, if I may, Councillor Bochek, there is if we go to 12 and if every municipality has to change the number of councillors they put forth, then every municipality is going to have to go through their own decisions. And interestingly, the 3 townships elect their council, the district council reps by, I'll call it geography. In other words, Muskoka Lakes and Lake of Bays, just like us, have district councils representing specific geographical areas, where I believe all 3 towns elect their district councilors at large. So again, it's one of those distinctions between the towns and townships. Councillor Wienko, I saw your hand.
I've been thinking about that too. If we did go to 12, I would suggest that we have a deputy mayor. So there'd be mayor and a deputy mayor, and they would be the ones that would go to Bracebridge, and then there would be 4 area councillors. So I think that's the way to get around this idea of competition. It would just be a deputy mayor. But again, keep in mind, everybody, of course, the mayor himself is from the Georgian Bay community, so having an inland one would be an equal thing too. But no, I think we go to a deputy mayor would be the way to go for if you had to go to 12. But I'm against the idea of 12 for the same reasons that you've indicated, that it's just a heavy workload and it would be misrepresentation.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
I think I've got to say something here. One, notwithstanding the lack of popularity of Councillor Hazelton over Councillor Bochek, I'm sorry to hear that, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I'm in agreement totally with what's being talked about here, particularly that letter from the Friends of Muskoka Lakes. And I think we got to understand, and everybody's got to understand, that the review has been mandated, but the review doesn't mean that things have to change. It means that there has to be a review. For starters, obviously people want change at the district level. I'm sorry to hear that in many ways, but having said that, the concept of 18 with equal representation across the board makes sense. You've got towns that have a very common demographic within that town, so they've got their representation at large, whereas our mayor has obviously illustrated. We have distinct groups within our municipality that need the appropriate representation. This has been proven in the past and needs to be continued from our perspective, because you've got an inland lake community that is very, very distinct in and of itself. You've got a coastal community that is very, very distinct. And I know, based on the community that I represent, that they need that. They need that. They don't get much, but to have a voice at the district council is very, very important. I would say that if they go for a big change, I would think we want to vote to secede from the district. I don't know if that's allowed, but anyway, I am really encouraged by the letter that went out from the Friends of Muskoka Lakes, and I think, yeah, I am agreeing that we should be trying to support that, and I really do wish that the committee to council, district council, will listen to that. Thanks.
Just minor clarification for you, Councillor Jarvis. The letter went out from 2 associations. One is called the Muskoka Lakes Association. The other one's called the Friends of Muskoka. Councillor Hazelton, do you want to jump in?
Friends of Muskoka Lakes Association incorporates both of them.
Yeah, I thought that was well done, actually.
I don't have a lot to add other than I think what have been hearing is that there seems to be a general consensus by the councillors on a path forward. I guess my concern is because we don't have groups like Friends of Muskoka, etc., that are broad and large and can voice concerns separate from a municipal perspective. It seems to me that that leaves us as a municipality to step up and provide a voice for our collective communities. And I think what I've heard is that every councillor has voiced support for this letter. And it seems to me that we as a township should then, as a council, should then similarly provide support for the messaging in that letter, so that we can amplify that letter and deliver that message from our township, which so far right now is voiced only through a few councillors, a few district councillors, being the mayor and our 2 other councillors. So I think that we need to find a way to become more vocal as a township, and vocal in the form of representing our residents, and adding to the voice that we've all agreed with. And I think we need to find a way to do that. And I know that this is a discussion only, but I think we need to find a way to aggressively and quickly do that, so that the others in the township can understand our agreement with that letter, and that we as councillors who represent our individual communities are in sync with the intent of that letter. Thank you.
May I propose that, Ms. Way, if you might want to craft a resolution that just simply says that the council of our township is in full support or agreement or something with the opinions as expressed by the Muskoka Lakes Association and the Friends of Muskoka, and perhaps it reflects the opinion of our local associations that have spoken with us, because I've certainly heard from representatives of some of the Georgian Bay associations who are basically in favor. I will admit to all of you that I'm cheered. I'm more optimistic about making our stand at the committee level, because of course I think you all understand the committee is mandated to make a recommendation to the district council. The district council then has to contemplate that recommendation, and once they have approved it, then it comes back to the township, because the township has to vote on it as well at the end. So it's a bit of a convoluted process. But I'm cheered and optimistic by that letter, because as you may well know, regardless of how you count, I mean, it's interesting. There's been a lot of concern, minor tangent here, but a lot of concern about the environmental calculations based on cell phone use of the populations. Regardless of what they had to say, there is general agreement and consensus around the district tables, whether it's be staff or council, that there are more so-called seasonal or second home residents than there are year-round permanent residents. And there's more or less agreement that Muskoka Lakes and Huntsville have the most people, that Gravenhurst and Bracebridge are somewhere in the 20,000s, where the other two are in the 30,000s, and Lake of Bays and Georgian Bay are in the teens. So we can argue extensively over a few thousand people, but the way it all fits in is more or less the same. While we were talking and having our clerk very quickly understand the hint, she's drafted a resolution that reads, be it resolved that council endorses the principles outlined in the letter dated January 8th, 2021 from the Muskoka Lakes Association and the Friends of Muskoka regarding the district council's modernization review, and that this resolution be circulated to the District of Muskoka's Municipal Modernization Committee. All right, Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wanko, please.
Well, thank you for suggesting that, Mayor. I was going to finish up with we need a resolution supporting this, and so that's perfect from my perspective. I just wanted to raise a couple of points for us to consider. There are some risks associated with where this is headed presently. Even if we do have this feedback, we need to recognize that the committee, which is made up of 6 mayors, have voted in favor of proposing 12 members. And some may not move off that position. So there's a pretty big risk there. I've had some feedback, not direct, but indirect through other councillors at the district, that certain municipalities, and I'm talking about townships now, not ours, not Muskoka Lakes, you can guess, where they are in favor of having just 2. So there is a risk associated with that. So I just caution the mayor who sits on this committee that there is still a fair bit of support going down to 12, and we need to be mindful of that. But I'd like to add a couple of other things. I said earlier on that the Environics numbers, if you take them as they're proposed, they're some pretty amazing stuff, including the town of Huntsville, which in every indication that we've read in the past has about 26,000 people, including seasonal residents, has magically gone either to 30,000 or 33,000 or something like that. And Muskoka Lakes numbers have gone down. And so I'm sorry, but there's something pretty fishy with those numbers. On top of which, I think one of the other things, maybe to Councillor Jarvis, just to explain that at the present time, and I think you're all aware of this, but at the present time, the townships are outvoted at the district with the 22 members. And thus we got dinged on the OPP charges. And that's not funny. Low services and high costs based on market value assessment as opposed to what the OPP proposed. So there's a fairness issue that comes into this. And I'm really talking about the 18 would be exceedingly fair because every township and town would have 3 members if they weren't weighted. And I just don't see any reason why a councillor would want to attend a council meeting on a weighted basis when, you know, the person sitting beside me is worth 100% and I'm worth 75%. It doesn't add up. So I just think it's important for us to understand that going to 18, we'd actually be in a better place because we would, in fact, in my mind anyway, be equal and it'd be fair. And so I support that. And I think it's important to be aware that this is the case. As far as Georgian Bay is concerned, like you, Mayor Kutzier, I've had a number of discussions. I've sent in information out to the associations. They're not moving as quickly as well funded as Muskoka Lakes. So, and it's winter, it's off season. There's a whole bunch of things that we need to remember. Not a lot of feedback other than the Georgia Bay Association did send out something requesting the cottage associations weigh in on this. If we have a letter from the township supporting the Muskoka Lakes position, we can then get that out to the cottage associations and say, do you agree? So just a few things for us to think about. Thank you. And I do support the resolution.
All right, I'll just make a quick response before going to Councilor Wienko. One is even though the committee did initially support the 12, when the district rejected our recommendations, the whole council in December, that number 12 is now still on the table. It's not finalized. As far as fairness is concerned, I think one of the things that and the letter, I'm very glad brings that out, is when we're talking seasonal versus permanent, if I can just use those traditional terms, the townships are majority seasonal. The towns are majority permanent, even though Gravenhurst is pretty close to an even score on that. And therefore, if the townships have equal voice, that in effect means the seasonals has equal voice. And if we don't go to weighted voting, then the various ways of calculating the counts aren't nearly as relevant, because we won't have to every year or every few years argue over who has how many votes to see whether you get 2% more of the vote or 2% less each. I mean, which is just going to be a nightmare. Councilor Wienko, sorry for my interruption.
Well, I was going to talk to the resolution. I'm glad to hear that the Georgian Bay Association has sent something out. As I say, for the inland that I've been working with, we have 3 letters from inland associations supporting it, and through Councillor Douglas there, it sounds like Go Home Lake is also supportive. So we have the majority of the inland lakes who have stated a position on it. And it sounds like you've been talking to some people out in Georgian Bay, and hopefully you can say that the majority of them also support it. So I think the resolution should have something in there saying that the majority of our associations, or whatever you want to say, also support it. So council supports it, our association supports it, gives it more weight when it comes to the resolution. So maybe put some words in there that this is being backed by the.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I'm quite sure that the Go Home Lake Association will get a letter out to us that we could include or make available at any rate. And I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Cooper for bringing the point up about the OPP. That was one very, very strong point where we lost in a huge way because we were outweighted. And so that in itself should be an eye-opener for everyone in this township of why it is so important that we have an equal vote. For anybody that was following that, because that is a huge expense to our township, and we lost out because of the vote situation. So thank you for bringing that up.
And more recent example, if I may, was this past a few months back when we were looking at development charges, and it was very clear that was the last intensive split that I was conscious of at the district council table, and that's where basically the towns were in favor of reducing development charges so that they could grow as quickly as possible. And the townships were thinking that as the expression grows, growth should pay for itself. In other words, by keeping higher development charges. And, unfortunately, it almost didn't matter what the townships had to say because the towns knew that they were going to outvote. Now, as it turned out, because we were missing a couple of councillors. The vote almost came down to a split. It was only a 1 vote difference. And if it had been tied, then the chair would have made the decision. And I think that's one other thing we have to include, which the letter makes some reference to. I'm not sure I want the chair to decide split votes, because that puts the chair in a heck of a lot of pressure. And the chair, who is not elected by the population at large, but rather by the council. So anyway, further support for the letter. But yes, I fully agree with Councillor Wienko. We should probably put some paragraph in that's saying that our local associations are also in favor of this. Did I see somebody else's, Counselor, did I see anybody else's hand at this point? Oh, Counselor Bocek. Well, I see our clerk happily composing. Okay, not happily.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I agree with everything that everyone said here. Just wondering, one of the major organizations that's been very vocal at the district is One Muskoka. Have we, I have certainly haven't received anything from One Muskoka on this issue. Have we received anything from them in the way they feel?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Because I'm sure that they're going to have a similar position on this as well.
I've never heard of them.
Very large in the Lake of Bays, Huntsville, inland areas over there. One Muskoka was basically very involved in our first term about getting rid of the second tier governments and having just one Muskoka. But they've been very vocal on district issues, and they've just disappeared for the past 8 months. Just wondering if anybody had heard from them.
If I could just comment briefly, Mayor Couture, I don't know where they've gone, but I do know that Lake of Bays is considering their position. They were going to be a signatory on this letter. They're not at the moment. So I think that's partly because of the district councilors at Lake of Bays are not moving from 12 at the moment. So that's all I can tell you there. And that's where our risk lies, is that if one of the township folds, when we get down to the final vote, it'll be a problem.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that.
I do think I'm not as concerned about the from Mayor Glover of Lake of Bays, because I think that his biggest concern was that he doesn't want Lake of Bays to have fewer councillors than anybody else, given that they have the lowest population, even lower than ours. And so I think that as long as he's equally represented, I think he can be persuaded. And I will be speaking with him later this week. Councilor Rienko.
I just wanted to add on to what Cynthia was saying about the OPP. That is obviously the biggest payback, but there's also the Muskoka Airport. I think we contribute about $80,000. And also the two hospitals, the Bracebridge Hospital and Huntsville Hospital, we pay for that. And there are other things. So if this goes through, we have equal voting, our taxpayers are going to save a lot of money. And I hate to calculate it, but it would be significant amount of money that we could save by getting equal voting.
Well, and it's or counter to that, get better value for whatever money we are spending. You use the example of hospitals. I have nothing against Huntsville and Bracebridge developing their hospitals, but I think 10% of the hospital money should be going to hospitals that serve our residents.
And if I could just weigh in here briefly, and that is, I agree with all that, and there's a number of things, and I mentioned earlier, for example, the Geo Hub did a whole bunch of very expensive satellites imagery and missed Georgian Bay, and we don't get it. And what's that about, when we've got more wetlands and coastal Georgian Bay and inland than anywhere else in probably Canada? So what are we talking about here? It just doesn't make sense.
Okay. Ms. Way, how are you doing?
I sent you a message. I just amended what we had though.
Oh, and I thought I responded to it.
Maybe. Would you like me to read it?
What?
Oh, there it is. Okay, yes. Would you like me to read the draft resolution then?
Please.
Be it resolved that council and the township's local associations endorse the principles outlined in the letter dated January 8th, 2021. It kind of goes on the same from there. I just kind of added.
Okay, so you just said council and the township's local associations.
Mm-hmm.
Council.
Could we add the word community associations? Because what associations are we referring to? So I think maybe community versus cottage.
Yeah, community. I think I like that. Thank you.
And if we could add in the majority, because we haven't heard from the Honey Harbor Association, we haven't heard from the Moore Point Association. Let's just add the word the majority of the community associations support this.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. So be it resolved that council and the majority of the township's community associations endorse the principles, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So the resolution will now read, and let me do it in full. Be it resolved that the council and the majority of the township's local community associations endorse the principles outlined in the letter dated January 8th, 2021 from the Muskoka Lakes Association and the Friends of Muskoka regarding the District Council's modernization review, and that this resolution be circulated to the District of Muskoka's Municipal Modernization Committee. All those in favor? Please have it recorded that this was passed unanimously by our council. And the sooner you can get me a printed copy of that, Ms. Way, I would appreciate it, because I'll also be circulating it individually to a number of people. I appreciate the support. Thank you very much. Okay. And then the next item, which was, oh, by the way, that was moved by Councilors Cooper and Bocek, I believe. Yeah, okay, I should have mentioned that earlier. I apologize. The next motion, moved by Councilor Douglas, seconded by Councilor Bocek, on the next topic is, be it resolved that council directs staff to provide a report and bylaw regarding the implementation of Sunday hunting with a firearm in the township of Georgian Bay. And I think this serves Ms. Douglas's earlier stated intent of that we receive a report from staff in regard to this. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to it. Councilor Rienk, I'll start with you.
We all got a number of emails on this, and I got a phone call on this myself. I'm concerned that there's an effort by hunters to have our change our present policy, and I'm not aware of any of these emails I got were from residents of our township. I think a lot of them are outside of our township. And I know there's going to be quite an effort and a lot of pressure put on us to pass Sunday hunting. But I think that might be a small minority and from people outside of our township. So I think it behooves us all to maybe talk to some of our local associations to find out where they stand on it. I know in the past I talked to a lot of the associations, and they were adamantly against the idea of Sunday hunting because we're a seasonal population and we only get up here on the weekends, and they want to be able to walk in the woods at least one day of the weekend. So I think, yes, we will get a lot of pressure. We'll get probably a very polished presentation, but I think we're getting the opinion of a minority of people who live outside of our township. Our township is 95% Crown land, which is probably the largest in Ontario, which makes it the prime hunting ground for a lot of people to come into our township on the weekend. So I think we have to listen to our residents on this, and maybe we could all be encouraged to talk to your local association to find out where they stand on it, because I think you'll get a lot different opinion than you will from the emails that you're getting right now. So a report, fine, but talk to your residents and vote according to what they say, not what the emails you're getting say.
Councilor Douglas.
Thank you. I know I didn't want to have a conversation about this, but I do want to respond to Councillor Wienko's comments. I do know that a lot of those emails did come from people within the township here, only because I recognize the names. However, there is some truth to what he is saying, and I think it behooves all of us to go to our associations, reach out through Facebook, whatever, so we actually get some indication from not just one interest group, which happens to be the hunters at this point, but also to make the public aware that this is coming up as a question. And being that we do obviously have some challenges with communicating with our public, I think it's important that we do get the message out, so we're not just hearing from one group. And I'm not saying whether I'm for it or against it, but I am saying that I think it's important that we hear. I know our last vote was turned down, I think it was 2017. But again, I'm not sure how much of the public knew on both sides. So it would be, I think it's a very good idea. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted to push this forward for another month, just to give that opportunity to all of us to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Can I make a request from staff? It's been claimed in some of the letter correspondence we've gotten that we're one of very few municipalities that still has this ban on Sunday hunting. Is it possible to get information on what the stand is with the other 400 and some odd municipalities? I don't know whether that's how easily available that is, but I am curious to know how accurate that information is that's been provided to us from the correspondence.
Ms. Way.
Sorry, if I could just follow up to Councillor Jarvis there. So right now through the legislation, what happens is Sunday hunting is by default banned, and then we have to opt in via bylaw. So there is mapping that is provided by the ministry. So this is information, and that kind of detail is something that we can bring forward in the report.
And if you look at those maps, anywhere north of Port Severn, other than the First Nations, we're one of the few areas that are shaded in as not allowing Sunday hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if we could craft not so much a resolution, but a letter to the community associations stating that we would like their feedback on this issue. That way, it's not just coming from us, but it's going to be standardized and we'll get it out to everybody that way. And we're not saying one way or the other, but presently this is what we have. We're hearing from, hunting associations that are interested in this, and we'd like your feedback. And I think that's one of the best ways to get a large volume of responses in a sense, because many of these cottage associations have anywhere from 100 to 700 or more family members, which is an even larger population. So I think that might be a way of doing it. And I haven't got it crafted, but if we could work on that and get it to our councillors, then we can get the story out to our communities. Just a suggestion, but thank you.
Councillor Bochek.
So not to have a discussion on this, Councillor Douglas asked to have this removed from the agenda because there's information that we don't have to make a decision. Let me give you a few that you non-hunters, because I won't call you people, you non-hunters, don't probably understand is that the MNRF and forestry create bag limits. These bag limits will change if you introduce more hunting, because the bag limits are there to keep the population of wolves, coyotes, etc. at bay, moose, deer, etc. There's a lot of variables in this. I supported the Sunday hunting the last time around. You have to understand in Port Severn here on Sunday, the shotguns are going off all day long. All day long. People hunt because right off my doorstep here is Simcoe County. Right off on the other side of Little Lake is Severn Township. We have a lot of bodies of water that are joined to areas outside of this jurisdiction. So you've got people hunting on one side of the lake and people on the other lake not hunting. So there's a lot of variables here. I agree. Let's put this to bed for now. Let the hunters and anglers do a delegation to us so we have all the information, because it's not just about having a walk for those 6 hours on a Sunday afternoon in the forest. There's a lot more to this than what we're hearing here. So I agree, Cynthia. If the hunters and anglers can get together for next month and do a delegation next month, I think we'll all be more informed.
All right. I mean, and the resolution we have in front of us now is to direct staff to provide a report, not for us to make a decision. And I'm just going to add with my comments, I've spoken to a number of hunters in the area, and I find it very interesting that they're more or less almost as indifferent as I am in one sense to this whole topic, because if they're a serious hunter, they tend to get their tags farther north and they go drive up in the Sudbury or farther north area to do their hunting, because there's a very limited number of tags available for our township. And they also point out, as you did, Councillor Bocek, that if we change to allow Sunday hunting, the number of tags could change as well. So it's not a simple black and white question. And so I think with that, the resolution that's in front of us, and I don't know if we need it or staff would like it or not, because clearly they've already received direction, but be it resolved that council directs staff to provide a report and bylaw regarding the implementation of Sunday hunting with a firearm in the township of Georgian Bay. Councillor Wienkel, followed by Councillor Cooper.
I'm curious how staff would prepare a report when they don't have feedback from the majority of our residents. Yeah, you can say, yeah, here, you know, we're maybe 3 out of all the townships in Ontario that doesn't have Sunday hunting, all that kind of stuff. But we'll already get that from the hunters group anyway. So I'm not sure what a township report would be worth if we don't get the community feedback. So that's what I'm going to listen to, is the community feedback.
I would hope that staff would look for community feedback. Councillor Cooper. You just muted yourself.
Sorry about that, Mayor Katsir. I don't know that it's fair to ask the staff to make a report on things like feedback from the many cottage associations that I talked about. And I think if we had a very simple letter that went out from the township to the councillors, and that could be part of our resolution, is to prepare a letter that we can send to our communities, associations.
Ms. Way, what would you prefer?
I'm just going to say, it's common practice for resolutions to be sent out to associations following a council meeting or group or municipality, depending on whatever the direction of that resolution is. So in this case, I think it would be pretty simple for the clerk staff just to kind of take this resolution, beef it up a little bit with communications, and then kind of distribute that accordingly to members of council to circulate without needing further direction to do so.
So does that mean you'd like us to pass the resolution? Because the resolution does not have a deadline on it.
Correct. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. I do have a request for a deputation for February, though. Yeah. So.
Well, that means I'm sure we won't make a final. We won't vote on until at least March at the earliest, I would think. Mm-hmm. So.
But we need the communication so that we can.
And that's been made very clear to staff. So my question is to Ms. Way, do we vote on this resolution, or do you just take this as direction without a resolution?
I would like a resolution for the staff report. The communication piece, I think, is part of our general process.
Okay. So right now I have moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved that council directs staff to provide a report and bylaw regarding the implementation of Sunday hunting with a firearm in the township of Georgian Bay. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm going to vote in favor, but under the understanding that this will require lots of input. So that is carried. Okay, somewhere on a piece of paper, I wrote that we had 2 additional items under new business. And now, of course, I can't find that piece of paper.
9D, discussion regarding committee of the whole meetings, and 9E, council email addresses.
Okay, so let's do the committee of the whole. I think that was 9D, was it not?
Yes.
All right, and Councillor Cooper, I believe that was your topic. And so if you wouldn't mind leading off the discussion, I would appreciate it.
Right, so I've already talked about a number of things. I sort of made a list and it keeps growing, although we seem to have been able to stroke one item off a little bit, and that's the position of our council regarding the District of Muskoka Council composition. But there are other things that are outstanding, some of which are, I think, sensitive from a time perspective. So just wondering if we could perhaps give some feedback to our clerk with respect to the merits of having committee of the whole, because that's one of the points I've made, is that I think we need to have committee of the whole meetings. And so that's one thing, but secondly, what things do we need to resolve? And some of them are a bit, shall we say, time sensitive. So for example, we know that we have till 2023, as I understand it, to come up with a complete and total solution to the waste management thing. We really haven't come to any sort of resolutions very much with respect to that. And I was suggesting that at a committee of a whole meeting, council could weigh in on this issue, and not all our councillors are on the solid waste committee. So I was suggesting that that be a subject matter for our committee of a whole. But I think we need other things, such as issues related to we're not finished our work on the procedural bylaw. We're not finished our work on the code of conduct. I think we, as I said, need to, what other things here? Yeah, discuss things like how to communicate with our communities, having email addresses, things like that, guys. I think it's important that we deal with that as well. So there's quite a few things that I think need to be dealt with at committee of the whole, starting with when, and we've sort of given feedback, but we really haven't nailed it down. We didn't have a cow meeting this month. There's a lot of things outstanding. So I'm asking that we, at our cow meeting, when we have the next one sooner, hopefully, rather than later, that we have a discussion again about what do we do at cow and when do we have it, and do we have to do it every month? I'm not sure that we do, but those are all questions that need to be answered. Thank you.
Well, I want to respond immediately before I recognize Councillor Bocek, and that is that obviously in December, there were some things that were referred to staff, and since that time, they haven't had a chance to address all those reports. And so, you know, if I were a betting man, I would say that there's going to be a meeting in February where the things that you have talked about will come up. Councillor Bocek.
So being a part of the last council, I seen the value of the committee of the whole. And basically what I discovered was Mayor Larry Braid, when there was no resolution where council had to make a decision, it was talked at cow, hence what we just did with the hunters and anglers. There's no decision there. There's no resolution to form a bylaw. So this hunters and anglers thing would have been talked about at a cow meeting. And the only resolution ever coming out of a cow meeting was to take this to council. Okay, we discussed it in cow. We worked it all out. And then it was recommended through a resolution that council deliberate on this. It came to the next council meeting. We've already had all the discussions. And for the most part, it was a very short reading of the resolution and a show of hands, and it was over because the hour or two of discussion happened in the cow meeting. So I'm very in favor of keeping cow and taking a lot of the items off of our agenda for the council meeting and moving them to cow so we can have a really good, wholesome discussion and then recommend to council to make a decision on what we've come out of cow with.
Clerk Way.
Sorry. The current discussion about whether or not cows should or should not be taking place, these specific items aside, that was for the previous meetings in which we discussed the procedural bylaw, in which I received direction that was then ratified earlier today with the cow resolutions that came forward. This discussion that is happening right now, if it is further granted or wanted, that's fine. But it's counterintuitive to the resolutions that were passed earlier and ratified by council from the cow meeting to bring forward the procedural bylaw for passing.
Yeah,
so,
I think
I'm not really sure from a staff perspective how this direction is supposed to be moving forward right now.
Well, and I also agree with that frustration in that a number of councillors have made it very clear over the last half year their infatuation with something called cow. And sometimes we even renamed it. There was so much love being shown. that's fine. And it's that was discussed again at I believe it was a COW meeting in December when we were talking about procedures. And so next month, I'm sure staff will be in front of us with a revised rules and procedures, and that will have COW as part of it. So I don't think we need to discuss further today whether or not we think COW is a good idea. We've already made that clear probably every meeting we've had in the last half year. I also understand that Councillor Cooper is a little frustrated with some of the topics not being in front of us, but I think we have to understand that it's only been 4 weeks since our last meeting, 2 of which was basically seasonal holidays. And so therefore, I think that we can understand that some things won't be in front of us until February. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand we had a holiday in between there, and I'm not trying to put pressure on staff. It's what I was trying to say is this, and that is that while we probably, the timing for having a COW meeting this week was not necessary, I'm not sure that we have to wait into February in order to try and get something done in March and April and on it goes when there's some time sensitive issues. So I guess I'm suggesting that we could always have at least one COW meeting between now and the next council meeting. So that's my suggestion, that we try and find a date near the end of the month to deal with this.
I'm sorry, I have to be a little amused because I would love the idea of having COW meetings halfway between our council meetings. But last time we brought in front of council the idea of having 2 council meetings a month, council wasn't at all in favor of it. So excuse my amusement, but you know, if we decide as a council that we want to meet twice a month, then we could accommodate what you're suggesting far more readily. But don't want to get into all that discussion right now, but we could perhaps do that as we talk about rules and procedures in the next month. Clerk Way, I almost called you a counselor, sorry.
Logistically, it takes about 2 weeks to prepare a meeting from staff reports to the meeting date. We're already halfway through the month. Some of the reports that you're asking us to bring forward needed ratification from the COW resolutions today at today's meeting, specifically for the code of conduct direction. So there's no possible way that I can have a COW meeting prepared with the code of conduct report between now and the next meetings in February. I can't speak necessarily to communications or waste management because those are not my files, but just logistically, timing wise, it's not going to work.
Well, I'll just leave it with, I trust staff will let me know when they have reports ready to roll, and that if we believe that there is something to be gained by calling an interim council meeting, then we'll review that with council and perhaps have an interim meeting. I'm not suggesting we call one at this moment. Councillor Cooper?
As long as we can have a meeting in February. I thought I was just hearing that it couldn't be ready. So when can we have a COW meeting? Sorry to be so persistent, but I think we all agree that COW is a good idea. So when?
The initial plan was to have one in February as part of the regular council schedule, but not to have one between now and then would not be logistically possible from a staff perspective to have the reports prepared that you're requesting. We could have a meeting, but I'm not sure what would be on it. So, or if what we do put on it would be fruitful for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. I would like to just offer an idea here. We don't know what staff are planning to bring forward in the future or the timeline. But we have heard in previous conversations with staff that they have a meeting agenda with target topics for future meetings. And I think what Councillor Cooper is getting at here is it's the fear of the unknown, if you will. In other words, we don't know when staff are planning to bring these matters forward, and we just talked about it, and this is wonderful. But given that we know staff have these calendars with target topics for future meetings, I know personally I would feel much better about having an idea of what staff expects to bring to council meetings in February and in March, because if things weren't going to be on the agenda that I would like to see on the agenda, and I'm speaking more here about a committee of the whole type discussion, then at least we'd have insight into it and we could offer comment. But right now, we wouldn't know what was being planned for February without having had this conversation. And so I would just ask if there is a way for staff to give us more of an insight into next month and the next month, perhaps have a rolling scenario of, here we are in January, here's what you can expect for now, not guaranteed, but here's what you can expect for now in month 2 and month 3 going forward. That would be very helpful for us to understand what is being planned by staff. Thank you.
CEO Gunby.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. That is sort of a double-edged sword, because we could easily tell you what we plan on bringing forward, but then if something comes up and we can't, then we may receive a hard time for not bringing something forward that was expected. So we have an idea based on council direction and council resolution what reports we need to bring forward. Some things take more time than may be expected for members of council, because we do have many other tasks that we're working on. If the new procedural bylaw, fingers crossed, gets finally passed in February, because we had the meeting that discussed all the final suggestions and approvals, that should just be on the council agenda February for approval and no further discussion. Council will get the agenda at least one entire week prior to the meeting, and that will give you more than enough time to submit any comments to us or questions about the reports.
Thank you. Councillor Rienko.
I think Councillor Hazelton makes a good point. I know at our Engineering and Public Works Committee, at the bottom of the agenda every time, there's a list, a table of the items coming forward in the next little while. And sometimes it says it's going to be next month, or it may say next quarter. So I think Jessica, you can say, this is going to be handled in March, and this item is going to be handled in the second quarter or the third quarter. So you could probably do something like that. So each agenda every month gives us a highlight of what's coming in the near future that we're interested in. There may be some topics that we may not be totally interested in, but I think that would be a good idea. Just have a small table at the bottom of the agenda saying what items are coming up, and it could be a month, or it could be a quarter.
Thank you. Again, I'm 50-50 on this one. This is another one of those administrative tasks that I am in charge of making sure happen. But I can also, I'll look into see if other people are doing this, because I'm not sure that this is appropriate, but I will get back to you. I will take this as a staff direction and look into it and report back to council.
I will comment that I also have seen the district do this, but what they list for the upcoming meetings is 1 or 2 items, and when the agenda is published, it usually has half a dozen items or more on it. So they're only telling us the things they know will come up in the next few months, which often are routine items. Like, we know you can put down for the rest of history, every January we will have a borrowing bylaw, and every January we will have a interim tax bylaw. But I don't know, telling us that years in advance is any great advantage. Because we treated them as new topics this month, at least in the one case. Councillor Cooper, and I also want to point out, and maybe I'm taking this a little too personally, but we all talk over and over about COW and how it allows free discussion. I would like to know when in this meeting I have restricted free discussion when people, Councillor Cooper, have had 4 or 5 chances to speak to a topic. Now, you're my prime example, but you're not the only one. So I just like to point that out, that we can be relaxed during regular meetings when it's not totally inappropriate. Councillor Cooper, with that.
I've had my suitable tongue lashing, thank you.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, I'm not paying much anyway, Peter. But I will say that I don't think that we're trying to hold staff's feet to the fire. What we're trying to do is get a picture of the future and making sure that we get certain things done. That's all we're asking for here. And of course, we don't really need to see things that are done every month. That's just not necessary. But I think what we are asking for is some assurances that we're going to start dealing with certain things and at a given time. And if we can't do it in February, we do it in March, including having a COW meeting and our council being able to weigh in on solid waste, for example. So that's I think it makes perfect sense to have some sort of indication of what might be appearing in the future. So we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Way.
It's okay.
All right. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, it's been an interesting discussion all the way around. I know that I was having discussions with a couple of councillors in the last week or two with regards to our procedural bylaw and the code of conduct and looking up. I knew from our previous meeting that the procedural bylaw is something that I know that our clerk wanted to get moved forward as quickly as possible, but there was no indication of when it was coming back to council. And that's the type of thing I think that we would like to be able to, so we can go back, oh yeah, it's coming to council next month. We should be all set by then, type of thing. So I find myself agreeing with Councillor Cooper on this, and that it just gives us a rough idea of where things are, or where we stand, and how things are coming forward. And that's where I'm in agreement. And yes, there's no reason for us to be holding anybody's feet to the fire because it doesn't come forward. Only just gives us an idea of when it should be coming forward.
Clerk Way.
Sorry, maybe if I can provide an example of how we determine or how things actually roll forward from meeting to meeting, because I know from your perspective, you're sitting here, you get the agenda, you go to the meeting, and administratively, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, correct? And that blindness sometimes can be frustrating when you're not sure what is happening. So for example, we had our COW meeting, our last COW meeting was December 17th, and I received 2 pieces of direction. The procedural bylaw I was told to bring back with the amended changes that were approved that meeting. So that means it's coming back to council. The second thing was the code of conduct, and I was directed to obtain a legal opinion regarding the mediation. So that's great. Both of those things need to be ratified by council in order for me to move forward. That means those CAL resolutions have to come forward to the next meeting for me to be able to bring it forward to council after that. Also, that being said, the meeting was December 17th, and I had less than a week to be able to prepare any reports coming out of that meeting before the next set of reports are due. And I'm sure you can appreciate those are not 2 reports, even if they came from council versus COW, that I would have had time in the interim to bring forward. So now, leaving today's meeting, I have approval to do those 2 things. So it's probably reasonable that I can bring the procedural bylaw back to council for what I would like to think is the final approval, but based off today's discussion, I'm not so sure that's the case. And I have to go now to get a legal opinion regarding the code of conduct. So it takes, a week or 2, sometimes depending on the circumstances, to obtain a legal opinion. And then from there, I have to draft a report. So by the time all of this happens, I'm probably missing the February report deadline, as much as maybe that is what our goal is, or that's what we're working towards. The expectation of council asking us to draft a staff report and thinking the next day the staff report is going to come forward for the next meeting is not always logistically possible from our standpoint, on top of all the other administrative duties that we already have to do and take care of. So I can understand the frustration, but this is what the process is. And if things go to CAL, we can't move forward until those decisions are ratified the following month by council. So anything that goes to CAL takes 2 months for you to for us to obtain approval for it from a council perspective at best. Does that help put some perspective into the timing of why things come forward at certain times versus other times? Or does that help provide some clarification? I'm hoping maybe not.
I appreciate it, but I still think, yeah.
Yep. Okay. And I appreciate the confirmation of what I thought was going on. Shall we move on to the next topic?
Sorry.
I don't think there was a resolution in regards to 9D. So
no, Eric and Julie have joined our meeting to be able to speak to the next meeting. Yeah.
9E was email addresses. Well, at least that's how I wrote it down. Or with regards to the email system that the changes that are taking place. And Councillor Hazelton, I believe you, I think it was more you than Councillor Cooper that was talking about this. So can you lead off the discussion, please?
Sure. So there are really two key elements to this. One is what I think Councillor Cooper is going to talk about, which is the need for township email addresses or not. My concern is going to focus on the process of how we got these new emails and the current state. And so I guess I'm just going to share some personal frustrations. Last week, the township demanded that we go to new emails in order to get emails from the township, but nobody had passwords. And then we discovered that things like, changing your password, which is not possible still, apparently. And yet our security policies and procedures require us to be able to change our password on a regular basis in case they get compromised. So I guess some of my concerns are that the change wasn't fully baked, but that's just a frustration that I'm trying to share here. My real concern is, and I'm going to make one assumption here, assuming we have to have the township email address. My concerns are this. If I have a laptop, I can embed my township email and my personal email in one screen and be able to relatively simply see the emails from the township, excuse me, and the emails from my personal environment in the same screen. And I can see if I have 1 or 0 unread emails from the township. However, if I want to put email on my phone, apparently the only way to do this is to give the township control of my phone to be able to delete anything on my phone. And in theory, that's done at any time that is an emergency. But in fairness, it now takes my phone out of my control, and all of my personal items on my phone can be destroyed by the township if, for whatever reason, the township determines that that is the path that they need to take. Now, in a commercial world, people solve this by issuing a business phone to the person, and they have their corporate business information and email and so on the corporate issued device, and they can therefore delete that whenever they feel is appropriate. And then you have your personal device, which I don't really like that idea personally. And I'm trying to find a way on a single smartphone to have both township email and personal email without giving the township control of my phone. That hasn't been solved yet, and I'm not saying it can't be solved. All I'm trying to do here is highlight the seriousness of the current state and suggest that there is probably a lot of work that needs to be done to get us to a position where we have a workable environment. I guess I can't imagine how any councillor who has got a mobile device that they use for business is going to want to turn over control of that device to the township, given that that represents probably a relatively small percentage of the use of that device. So I'll stop there and let other councillors speak up.
Ms. Boutiette, I see you. Are you there because you want to speak, or before we go to the other councillors?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and thank you for having me on remotely today. I could say that a lot of the items that were mentioned by Councillor Hazelton are of administrative nature, and I think we've found a workaround for most of them, which I will not detail today because they're of administrative nature. But I will start by saying an apology for the way it was rolled out. However, it was emphasized time and time again that this is for security reasons, and the more we learn about securities, the potential for phishing and hacking, and all of the tools that we have as the township for anti-spam, antiviruses, like this is the way to go to be able to safeguard the corporation. So all of those matters, if Councillor Hazelton wants to get in touch with IT or I think we've got a workaround for most of those items that were mentioned as issues.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wienko.
Thank you, Mayor, and good day, Julie. Yeah, so I just, my concern with all of this is that I think it's very important when we're communicating with our constituents that they understand how they're being communicated with and the degree of confidentiality in some cases required. And I wanted to emphasize that there have been cases in the past where there are certain organizations or whatever that have gone on fishing expeditions to get at people's email communication. And if you keep your communication on your own personal email, it's not available to anybody. And that's, I have a determination from MFIPA to that effect. So that's one point. I guess the other point is that I understand there's been some glitches, and I did get, thank you, Julie, you set me up on Friday afternoon. So I do have the township email address on one of my laptops, not two of them. And I have to say, thankfully, it's not on the second one, because what I discovered after we set this up is I lost all my contacts. They're gone. And that's not good. And I can't find them. Now, maybe that's a tech problem for me, but they should be in there. So when you go into Outlook and you hit 2, and I put in S for Stephen, it used to come up. Now I have blank. So I have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of email addresses. I don't know where they are, other than thankfully I have a second laptop here, which has most of that information on it. So there are glitches. I really don't want to go around with 2 cell phones, but if there's a workaround, I'd love to hear about it. But those are some of the things I just thought would be good to have a discussion about today. Thank you.
Ms. Gunby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to remind Council that this isn't really a brand new initiative. You have not had GBT emails for 2 years, but up until 2 years ago, there was never an issue. So I just hope that we can all be on the same page and understand that we need to do this moving forward based on security reasons as outlined by our treasurer. And we also have someone from Helix IT on the line as well, if anyone needs any sort of technical questions answered, because I sure can't do that.
All right, Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Douglas.
No, I just got to say that Julie helped me the other day get onto the system and set up my GB Township website, and it's working quite well. The only problem is they did get it into my Outlook, but I have to go into each of my email addresses now to check them out. So, but that's, I guess, a small headache, I guess, to do, but it's all, mine's all set up. I was able to change my password and so on. So everything's tickety-boo. But Julie was to send me a note, I guess it was Eric that's supposed to send me a note about how to get it onto my phone. And I haven't got that yet. So I would like to use my phone for to get both of them on there. So I'm still waiting for that.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Well, I'm still not on the email system yet, and I am hesitating, although I've indicated that I will take a look at it after today's meeting. I mean, as a business person, I really can't afford to lose addresses, and I really can't afford to have cross-pollination in any way whatsoever with this. And I'm not really sure what the solution is, and perhaps I'm going to have a conversation with our IT guys at the township here. I mean, if it's something that we need to do and it's a threat, there's any threat whatsoever, I personally don't want to participate in it, even though I may not have a choice as a counselor, but I'm going to suggest that I have a something separate that isn't tied into my iCloud and everything else, to get this separately, whether it's an independent phone from the township. I don't know, but I do not want it, any indication where there's any chance of it affecting my business or personal emails, because I have substantial amounts.
Thank you. Mr. Buell.
Just to alleviate some of the concerns about the remote wiping of devices. We do have a workaround in place, as Julie mentioned. If you use the official Microsoft Outlook app on your phone, we can actually trigger a wipe that only affects that app. So that would be our way of keeping the devices separate. So you could still use your personal device for your phone. I have the official documentation from Microsoft up, and it does confirm that it only wipes out the data from that app, nothing else from the device. I was speaking with Councillor Hazelton on this last week as well, and we had noticed that when he added it into the app, it didn't prompt the same permissions. So there are workarounds around this, and to piggyback off of Councillor Cooper's comments about the contacts, I would like to take a closer look at that, which we'll do after this meeting and arrange a time, because when you add certain accounts and stuff like that, what can happen is it can change some like settings with your views. So it might just be that it's hidden in another place. So we can work through all of that. And if your contacts are still on your other device, that means they haven't been wiped out. It's just a matter of finding where they got put to. So with the township emails, the other reason this is key is because they're township emails, us from Helix can support them. So when you do have these issues, you can log tickets with us or work through township staff to bring up these issues, and we can work with you on them, as opposed to with the personal devices and personal emails. That's another thing on top of the security aspect, that supporting them becomes more difficult because we don't have any insight into that information.
All right, thank you. All right, I believe that we have raised the profile of this challenge with staff. I mean, it is an administrative issue. I will tell you that I have been, because I didn't have a choice really, been using the township email for the last 2 years. And a couple times I've had hiccups. I have found in the last little while, Helix be most supportive, and I've greatly appreciated that. So I'm optimistic that between staff and Helix, these issues can get resolved. And worst case scenario, there'll be an item in front of council in the next month or so, giving everybody an allowance to get a new phone. I don't know. We'll have to see, but hopefully we don't have to go there. CAO Gunby.
Thank you. Just another reminder to council, you've already received an allowance.
All right. Now, do we need another round talking about all this? Councillor Bocek, Councillor Douglas?
No. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't have a first round, so I was gonna.
You're right.
Wow. So my concerns are about security. I had Julie work with me and get it loaded up. I don't have any problems with my contacts. They were all imported. I have no issues with it. On my Android A20, I installed it on there and my laptop. All three of my emails now are on my mobile device independently, or I can have them merged together so that they all come through on one. But my real concern is security. I have in the past had a lot of conversations via email about closed session items with people that are involved with the closed session item, whether it be lawyers or planners or whatever. And my concern is that closed session emails are 100% secure and cannot be seen by administration, staff, Helix, anybody, because as far as I've been told throughout my municipal career is closed session items are for my ears only and no one else's. So I need an assurance from Eric or from someone that anything that is on my email to do with closed session is not obtainable by anyone. And that includes perhaps even with an FOE. I don't know if that's part of the municipal act or not. Our CAO can let us know on that. But my real concern is security on closed session items.
Ms. Wade.
I think Jessica and I or CEO Gumby and I are both going to say the same thing. So I will let her go.
Well, I was just going to state that you should not be emailing anyone about closed session items in the first place. So if you are doing that, I would ask you to refrain from emailing any lawyers or anyone else about the items. But I'll let Karen speak about the FOI process.
Just to correct you, I receive emails from planners and lawyers about closed session items that are coming up. It could be a sewerage company that is involved in a closed session thing, and they're providing me with information. And then again, this is very concerning to me that information, even though it's out there in the virtual world, is still in a closed session format that nobody has the ability to reach in and grab any of it.
I kind of have a two-part response, I think, to all of that. Basically, bottom line is if it's township business, it should be conducted over the township emails. It is a township record, and any of those conversations to and from staff or with professionals that the township has had to engage in or use as a consultants, those are township records, and those should be conducted in a way in which the township can manage that information. In that case, it is a township email address. That does not mean in any capacity anyone is going in and searching. It would be treated the same way as any other staff's email account is. FOIs are kind of a different bag. No one would go in and search your email addresses without permission, kind of still a similar process to what is happening now. If we did receive such a request, and anything that is a record through an FOI gets processed and filtered through MFIPA. So closed session, depending whether it's already been made open or not, depending whatever the topic is, would each get treated and triaged separately. It's not like, oh, here's all the responsive records, so we're just going to give it all off. Literally every word on every single record is read, and the determination is made on whether that can or cannot be released through MFIPA when we do have a request, or whether it's even, a responsive record. So the risk of something going out that should not be going out via an FOI isn't an issue, because that's not done in an automatic process in any capacity. Does that help answer your question, Councillor Bocek?
Well, not exactly. I could be involved in a personal lawsuit to do with township business. The communications are on my township email because of that reason, and there's information there that I don't want anybody to have for any reason. But yet in the system with an FOE, you can go in and grab that information is my understanding. Nobody's told me anything different.
Generally, when we have FOI requests, and even from a staff perspective, I don't go into Jessica's email account or CEO Gumby's, email account to retrieve that information. I go to her and she provides me with the requested documentation.
Okay, but that could be an internal policy, but that's not law.
Yes, it is. Law.
If I might add, just to add to Karen's, through you, your worship, the administrators of the email are Helix. We have signed confidentiality agreements with Helix. They would not share that information even with staff unless they have proof of why we need that information. So I have full faith in the managed service provider and what their duties are, and they would not go digging in anybody's email unless they were asked to do so and prove that it was legitimate by law to do so. So I don't know if that adds a little bit of assurance.
Well, it really doesn't. And I think what we've opened up here, and I want to be, trust me, I'm not being a whiner about this. This is, I think, probably something that needs to happen, but we need to have all our checks and balances in place. And I don't have confidence at this point in time. And what you've opened up is for every counselor here to use their personal emails, their texts, their voice messages, their phone calls and everything else, and not use the township email. A lot of us will probably sit here and receive emails from the township to keep us updated, but all our communications will still be done on our personal emails. So I don't see a blanket over this that really supports this being an all-encompassing system that we can all rely and trust on. So, and trust me, I'm giving you this information, giving staff this information, so that maybe we can resolve all these issues. It's certainly not me saying I'm not going to use it. These are facts that really could play into this. And I need answers before I completely trust the system.
Clerk Way.
Appreciate that.
We are trying to conduct a modern municipality in the most transparent and open way to conduct a government business. So that means all of us using municipal email addresses. I would not ever consider conducting municipal business on my personal email address because it is not managed, and that is a private domain that is not public. It is not subject to MFIPA. It's not regulated in any capacity. So the privacy concerns and regarding the legislation and what business you are or not conducting on your township email accounts should only be specific to your council business. If you have personal business, by all means, conduct that on your personal email account. I would strongly advise against publicly announcing the fact that you're going to conduct or township business on your personal email accounts, because that will be significantly frowned upon from an MFIPA perspective. So I'm not sure what else to say to further this conversation, but from an MFIPA perspective, there's no privacy breach in any capacity.
Okay, thank you for your responses, Karen. I appreciate it.
Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Okay, I'm just wondering if I can get a request put into Helix with Eric, is it Bewell? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Just to have a fulsome discussion in private as to how I'm going to move forward, because I need this on a separate device and nothing that cross-pollinates with the rest of my businesses or my personal accounts. There's too much risk. I mean, things happen with electronics, and it's great that we've got you there as support, but once it's happened, and fixing it after the fact is of no consequence to me. So if you could just give me a quick call at perhaps after this meeting or at your convenience, so we could talk about how this can happen with a separate device, that it's not going to be my phone and it's not going to be anywhere that I've got other business or emails on. Now, whether that then follows with whether we need to have a discussion on whether we have separate devices such as phones that are strictly township based, then maybe that's something we need to talk about, because it sounds like I'm not the only one that's very concerned about this. And if that's the case, maybe that's where we should be going, is having a separate device that does not cross everything. Just my thoughts. But if somebody could give me a call, at least we can have that conversation in regards to the technical.
For that. And I'll touch base with staff with regards to their thoughts on equipment, privacy concerns and all that. And then from there, we'll have either a joint discussion between staff and myself, or we can just schedule a meeting for it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Councillor Cooper.
I just wanted to weigh in with this, and that is that it's my understanding, and Karen, maybe I have this wrong, but constituency business between, or business that's not really township business in the normal sense, something that's not coming before council or in closed session or whatever. There's, as I understand it from what I've read and had a determination from MFIPA, that's allowed. I'm allowed to have communication with my constituents, and I don't have to share it with you. No, I mean you, I mean the township. And I'd like to see proof to the opposite of that, because that's not what I've seen in the determination I had from MFIPA. Thank you.
Clerk Way.
Sorry, I've read over the documentation that you have sent me, Councillor Cooper, so unless you have something else to that effect. Constituency emails are private to the public. They're not necessarily private in a responsive document request, depending on the circumstance. If you're dealing with anything regarding township business, if you're communicating with a constituent regarding an upcoming council meeting or an item they're requesting you to bring forward, that is your role in your business as an elected official. And that makes it township business. and therefore it should be conducted on your township email addresses. If there is a search or an FOI request in which a search comes forward and you find documents that meet that search criteria, and some of them happen to be constituency emails, those emails are not released through MFIPA. But there is a possibility that half that email is a constituency email and half of it is not a constituency email, depending on how the chain of emails go. It's not a straightforward answer to say, yes, this is, responsive document and this is not. There's so many variables and factors and hypothetical situations. So it's really not easy for me to sit here and be like, yes, that one is, and no, that one isn't. It's not a black and white piece of legislation, right? So constituency emails are not public. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not township records.
So thank you for that. And I guess, thank you, but I'm not going down that road.
Okay, I think with all this discussion that staff, our concerns have been passed on to staff quite effectively, and I am under the impression that staff will address some of them. And it's always the case of if a counselor has an email address for the township and they choose not to use it, they can choose not to use it. That may not protect them if there's any sort of issue in front of the courts in the future, but that, I'm no lawyer, I'm not going to opine on that. I think with that, I think we should probably move on to the next topic on our agenda, and that is bylaws. And we have a bylaw in front of us, and I believe I've heard from our clerk that they'd like to make a modification to the proposal. And that the bylaw in front of us, if I got it correctly, well, Clerk Wade, do you want to speak to it? Or CEO Gunby, I see you wiggling some fingers. You must want to speak to it. Please go ahead.
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. So this bylaw is to maintain the current makeup of the Committee of Adjustment for January and February, because at February Committee of the Whole, I'll be bringing forward a report to discuss the revised terms of reference, because I brought a report in December. So I'm bringing a report in February. So I don't want to appoint 2 counselors for the entire year if council changes the direction that the committee appointments go. So the bylaw here is just to remain status quo for January and February, and then next month I'll bring a report forward for discussion.
Councillor Jarvis.
Do I get paid extra for that?
Nope.
Well, you get paid by the meeting. No, you actually, as a counselor, we don't.
No, we don't get paid at all. Just kidding. Fine.
Trust me, 6 years of Fridays, no pay.
The resolution, it's moved by Councillor Wienkel, seconded by Councillor Bocheck. Be it resolved that council hereby enacts bylaw 2021-003 to appoint 2 council positions on the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment for January and February 2021. All those in favor? And that is carried. One of the most efficient items we've had in our meeting. Okay, closed session. I believe that the only item in closed session is to approve minutes. So unless any counselor has anything they want to discuss in regard to those minutes, I say we don't bother going into close. So council, does anybody have any discussion around the minutes that are to be approved? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. So therefore, the motion that we would have discussed is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved, the council adopts the December 14th, 15th, 2020 closed session council meetings as circulated. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay. So now, moved by Councillor Wienkel, seconded by Councillor Bocheck. Be it resolved, the council adopts bylaw 2021-004 to confirm the proceedings of the January 11th, 2021 council meeting. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the council does now adjourn at 12:53 p.m. until Monday, February 8, 2020 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? Council, we have completed our first council meeting of 2021. Thank you very much. CEO Gunby, did you want to say goodbye verbally?
I did. I just wanted to say goodbye, everyone. Good to see you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you all. Let's hope we all had positive resolutions for anyone who